Chapter 923. After the Scarlet Abyss sword had evolved into a destinable divine artifact, it contained an entire chaotic universe. When the sword slashed down, it was equivalent to the entire chaotic universe crashing into the barrier. Before the tip of the sword arrived, the power contained within the destinable divine artifact had already collided violently with the barrier of the heavenly yin great world, causing the 1 billion kilometer wide heavenly yin great world to shake violently. It was like a small wooden house that had been swept by a violent wind. Although it was not completely destroyed, it was on the verge of being uprooted. Countless shavings of wood that were not too sturdy were swept into the void and revealed in the heavenly yin great world, causing spatial cracks to appear everywhere. The mountains and rivers that looked like paradise on Earth were all torn apart, accompanied by world-destroying volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, tsunamis, and other terrifying natural phenomena. And this was only the result of the Scarlet Abyss sword strike. It was just like how a mortal's sword would create wind when they swung it. In the face of such a terrifying sword strike, Grand Venerable Bone Slaughter, who was hiding in his own palace, immediately sensed fatal danger. The void around the palace that was thousands of kilometers wide suddenly cracked open, as if the palace had drilled a hole into the world, causing him to fall out of the barrier. Moreover, the palace emitted a large amount of flowing light that formed a protective barrier, clearly intending to use the entire heavenly yin great world to bear the brunt of Tsing Hui's destructive sword strike. Seeing this, Tsing Hui's expression did not change, but the sword he had slashed down with changed direction slightly, turning from a slash into a stab. When Grand Venerable Bone Slaughter's palace left the heavenly yin great world, the Scarlet Abyss sword's blade had already slashed into the palace. Instantly, two forces of energy spread out from the center of the collision. A vast universe vaguely appeared above the palace, filled with an aura that could devour everything under the heavens and rivers. It seemed to want to completely devour the power contained in Tsing Hui's sword strike. This palace is a destinable divine artifact. The 8-armed dragon god really can't bear to part with you. Unfortunately, your cultivation is only equivalent to the 3-vein level. Even if you have a destinable divine artifact, what can you do? Buzz buzz! The Scarlet Abyss sword that had pierced through the light barrier surrounding Great Monarch Bone Carnage's palace shuddered slightly. The light of 6 different laws seemed to revolve around the sword, causing its power to multiply several times over. For a time, the light barrier surrounding the palace burst like a bubble that had been punctured, exploding into countless streaks of light. In the next moment, the tip of the Scarlet Abyss sword, which contained the power of a universe, slashed at the main hall of the palace. Before the tip of the sword arrived, the crushing power contained within the sword had already dispersed, causing the palace, which was equivalent to a divine creation artifact, to shake violently and collapse inch by inch. Stop! At the critical moment, Great Venerate Bone Ka, who had been hiding, finally appeared. He directly manifested a chaotic shadow. Clearly, he cultivated the divine beast chaos lineage. I'm the son of the 8-armed dragon god. My father is even a top existence on the list of strong gods. If you kill me, my father will not let it go. If you let me go, I'm willing to give you double the benefits that Lord Gu Xuanzun promised you. Great Monarch Bone Ka roared. Obviously, he had already investigated the reason why Tsing Hui had targeted him. You can't afford what he's offering, Tsing Hui said indifferently. As he spoke, the Scarlet Abyss sword slashed down fiercely. The chaotic shadow that Great Monarch Bone Ka had manifested collapsed like a fragile sand sculpture under this slash. Then, the Scarlet Abyss sword slashed at Great Monarch Bone Ka's body without slowing down. Even though Great Monarch Bone Ka had manifested several protective divine artifacts, none of them could withstand the Scarlet Abyss sword's sharp light for even an instant. One slash to break all laws. In front of the Scarlet Abyss sword, these ordinary divine artifacts that were not even divine creation artifacts were all destroyed in a single slash, no matter how many of them there were. No, As great monarch Bon Ka screamed, the chaotic sword Chi on the Scarlet Abyss sword, which was formed entirely from the chaotic universe, finally slashed at great monarch Bon Ka's body. When the chaotic sword Chi collided with a complete great Tao law, a miraculous scene of the birth and destruction of the universe seemed to be born in the void. As great monarch Bon Ka's body had transformed into the great Tao, as long as the great Tao did not die, he would be indestructible. However, just like how great masters could only rely on themselves when they went to the chaotic void, the chaotic universe contained in the Scarlet Abyss sword had a similar effect on these great Tao laws. Moreover, those great masters who ventured into the primal chaos void only had to face the unconscious corrosion of the primal chaos chi. However, the power of the primal chaos universe contained within the Scarlet Abyss sword was a targeted attack. Even though the two were not of the same magnitude, the threat they posed was still incomparable. Great monarch Bon Ka's great Tao laws struggled fiercely as he screamed. However, they were continuously destroyed by the chaotic sword Chi formed by the Scarlet Abyss sword. After a full 10 minutes, great monarch Bon Ka's voice gradually weakened. After a while, great monarch Bon Ka was finally killed by Tsing Hui. This was a great master who had transformed into the great Tao. Even though Qing Su was who knew how many times more powerful than great venerable Gu Sha, he still needed to expend some effort to kill a great ability master. This was also the reason why the Grand Yin Holy Venerate was unwilling to provoke great monarch Qi Shao over a fragment of great monarch Qi Shao, even though he was clearly much stronger than him. It was not difficult to defeat a great master, but to kill one, the difficulty increased exponentially. After killing great monarch Bon Ka, Tsing Hui's gaze shifted to the broken creation divine artifact. This creation divine artifact was extraordinarily powerful. Even though great monarch Bon Ka's cultivation base was mediocre, the defensive power he could unleash was still shocking. If Tsing Hui had not unleashed his full battle strength at the critical moment, fusing 6 types of laws into the Great Tao of Unification, and then using the Great Tao of Unification to power the Scarlet Abyss sword, he would not have been able to break this creation divine artifact in such a short time. As long as this creation divine artifact could hold out for a while, the 8-armed dragon god would definitely rush over when he heard the news. At that time, it would not be easy for him to kill great monarch Bon Ka. Tsing Hui glanced at the dimly glowing creation divine artifact and flew back to the heavenly yin great world with it. "Everyone come out," Tsing Hui said after putting the palace away. For a time, beautiful figures with various graces flew out from the palace one after another. Not long after, there were already close to 1 million people. These women, no, they should be called female creatures. Great monarch Bon Ka's hobby was not limited to human women. Almost all of these female creatures were members of great monarch Bon Ka's harem. In order to capture beautiful women from all over the world, great monarch Bon Ka had destroyed many sects and worlds in his life. However, due to the existence of his father, the 8-armed dragon god, those destroyed sects and worlds could only choose to swallow their anger. Even though great monarch Bon Ka was dead now, there were still not many women who dared to vent their hatred, because there was still the 8-armed dragon god. "All right, you can all go back." With that, Tsing Hui turned to leave. At this time, many women came forward and bowed. "Thank you, benefactor." Rumble. Before the women could finish speaking, a violent rumble came from the periphery of the heavenly yin great world. Then a soul-shaking roar echoed from afar, echoing in every corner of the heavenly yin great world. "Tsing Hui, I don't care who sent you here, but if you dare hurt my son, I will not rest until you die." Hearing this voice, all the women turned pale with fright. Even Tsing Hui frowned slightly. They came pretty quickly. After a moment, he looked in the direction of the voice. "Not rest until you die? It seems that if I don't beat the 8-armed dragon god into submission and let him understand the gap between us, I'm afraid he will really bring me a lot of trouble." I don't want to take the divine wilderness great world to wander in the chaos void from now on. Thinking of this, Sing Hui waved his hand and put away the broken good fortune divine tool. He took a step forward, and the laws retreated. Soon, he was out of the heavenly yin great world. Considering the destructive fluctuations that may be caused by the all-out battle between two powerful divine ability masters, Sing Hui did not wait outside the heavenly yin great world. Instead, he rushed in the direction of the eight-armed dragon god. Although the eight-armed dragon god's thoughts were transmitted through the great Tao laws, in fact, he was still a long way from here. Sing Hui could choose the battlefield himself. After leaving the heavenly yin great world a sufficient distance away, Sing Hui judged the direction in which the eight-armed dragon god would come and stopped. After waiting for less than an hour, Sing Hui felt something and suddenly slashed at the void. At this time, there was also an unbelievably fast spatial fluctuation that wanted to shoot into the heavenly yin great world. It was the transmission formation. The spatial fluctuation of the transmission formation. As Sing Hui slashed out with his sword, the spatial fluctuation of the transmission formation was destroyed on the spot by the chaotic sword chi contained in the Scarlet Abyss sword. Suddenly, two vast and terrifying auras spread out from the spatial fluctuation and filled the entire endless void. One of them was the eight-armed dragon god, the father of great sovereign Gu Sha, ranked 9th on the supreme divine list. 2. Sensing the aura emitted from the spatial fluctuation, Sing Hui was a little surprised. His gaze soon fell on the other man whose aura was not inferior to the eight-armed dragon gods. Great Emperor Qi Shao. The man who came with the eight-armed dragon god was actually Great Emperor Qi Shao. Soon, Sing Hui connected the dots. The eight-armed dragon god and Great Emperor Qi Shao seemed to have a good personal relationship and often interacted with each other. If Great Emperor Qi Shao was a guest at the eight-armed dragon god's place, it was reasonable that he would come to support Great Emperor Qi Shao when he learned that Great Emperor Qi Shao wanted to kill the eight-armed dragon god's son. After all, in Great Emperor Qi Shao's opinion, Sing Hui was not as important as the eight-armed dragon god. I can't sense my son's great Tao and nomological laws anymore. My son, you kill my son? The eight-armed dragon god glanced in the direction of the heavenly yin great world and then turned his gaze to Sing Hui, his eyes full of anger, pain, and disbelief. Great sovereign Gu Sha has destroyed countless sections. Naturally, he should have thought that he would one day meet such an end. Sing Hui held his sword and faced the eight-armed dragon god. You kill my son. You dare to kill my son. How dare you? Who gave you the courage? The eight-armed dragon god was furious and roared fiercely. Brother Qi Shao, support me. Don't let him escape. How dare you kill my son? Today, I will make you pay with your blood. Not only that, but everyone related to you will be buried with your foolish actions. Chapter 924. You, the eight-armed dragon god, aided Grand Exalt Bone Temple's actions. Since you intend to pay with your blood today, I hope you'll keep your word. None of us are allowed to take half a step back as long as we're alive. Sing Hui did not dodge in the face of the eight-armed dragon god. He unsheathed the Scarlet Abyss sword and sent streaks of sword chi soaring into the sky to meet the eight-armed dragon god. What arrogance! You've offended me, the eight-armed dragon god. Even if the master of the Grand Development Gate comes here in person, he won't be able to save you. The eight-armed dragon god roared, and the phantom of a torch dragon brazenly appeared. This torch dragon phantom was many times larger than ordinary divine beast phantoms. The moment it appeared, it blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Even with Sing Hui's eyesight, he could not see the entire body of the torch dragon clearly. From this, it could be seen that the torch dragon's silhouette occupied a diameter of at least a quadrillion kilometers, or even several quadrillion kilometers. It was even larger than the Qilin progenitor's body, which was composed entirely of nomological light. World protectors were special existences that did not care about their future breakthroughs and constantly strengthened their comprehension of the laws of the great Tao. It was said that when the evil god wreaked havoc in the world, he had killed 6 of the 12 divine beasts under the Master of Chaos, including the divine beast Tong Tian that still existed. However, because there was a world protector who cultivated the laws of the divine beast Tong Tian, he was unbelievably powerful, even slightly stronger than the current master of the Grand Development Gate. After the fall of the true divine beast Tong Tian, he was directly promoted by the Master of Chaos. He refined the remaining power of laws of the divine beast Tong Tian and replaced the divine beast Tong Tian to become the new ancestor of the divine beasts. He had a chance of becoming a chaotic being in the future. This method was the only way for world protectors to transcend. Even though there were limited spots, and it was extremely difficult, there was still a glimmer of hope. This led to countless world protectors advancing dauntlessly, giving birth to one extremely powerful existence after another. This was also why the strongest experts in the Master of Chaos domain were the Black and White Exalted Lords, who were world protectors, and not the Grand Development Gates Master, the Grand Development Holy Exalt. So what if you have the size, but lack the quality? Qing Su glanced at the figure conjured by the 8-armed dragon god. He fused with his sword and directly pierced through the 8-armed dragon god's body. This is your fortune artifact? Your power is even greater than we imagined, but it's useless. Although your attack can tear apart the mythological beast phantom I have manifested, it's not worth mentioning compared to the huge and terrifying size of my mythological beast phantom. Even if I let you attack me for 3 days and 3 nights, you won't be able to inflict any fatal injuries on me. I only need to seize the opportunity to severely injure you in one fell swoop. In the long run, you will be exhausted to death. The 8-armed dragon god was not afraid of Tsing Hui's attack at all. The massive Aurora Dragon Phantom he manifested tore down and covered an area of 1 trillion kilometers, making it impossible for Tsing Hui to dodge. However, the attack of the 8-clawed dragon god Divine Beast Phantom couldn't be compared to the attack of the Qilin Progenitor. If the density of the Qilin Progenitor's attack was 100, then the attack of the 8-clawed dragon god's Divine Beast Phantom was not even 10. At best, it was 3 or 4. Qing Su did not need to put in too much effort. Just by bursting with the sword Qi from the Scarlet Abyss sword, he easily shattered all the flowing light of laws in the Divine Beast claws. At the same time, he followed up with another burst of sword Qi, ripping open a huge crack on the claws of the 8-armed dragon god's projection. This little damage isn't even enough to scratch an itch. The 8-clawed dragon god sneered. The power of laws in other places quickly circulated and quickly filled up the huge hole that Tsing Hui had torn open. At first glance, it looked as if it had been restored to its original state. This size is indeed astonishing. If it was an ordinary supreme expert, he might really be exhausted to death. Even if I, who has the combat strength of a 9-vein master, really wanted to exhaust him, I don't know how long it would take for me to defeat him. Even if I defeated him, I still wouldn't be able to stop him if he wanted to escape. After watching for a moment, Tsing Hui quickly understood how difficult it was to deal with the 8-clawed dragon god. His colossal size made him almost invincible. However, ordinary supreme experts might not be able to do anything to you, and even the Grand Derivation Holy Sage could only admit that he was unlucky if he got tangled up with you. But the tricks I have are not something you can imagine. The thoughts in Tsing Hui's mind turned, and he had already figured out the advantages and disadvantages between the two. What he was thinking wasn't as simple as defeating the 8-clawed dragon god. Killing the 8-clawed dragon god was his true goal. Of course, if it was possible, he wouldn't mind killing Emperor Qi Shao while he was at it. Tsing Hui sneered at once. 8-clawed dragon god, it's true that you have a colossal size, but that only gives you great power. You still need to polish this power to transform it into invincible combat strength. I can't kill you, but you can't stop me if I want to leave. Is that so? I'd like to see how you're going to break through my blockade. Emperor Qishao said indifferently. At the same time, a colossal golden crow phantom materialized from his body. It was like a scorching sun that illuminated the endless void, dominating the world. If someone were in the nearby great worlds at this moment, they would definitely notice that the sun in the sky had become incomparably bright, so bright that it was even a little blinding. This was the power of a top-notch great medium. Although they couldn't radiate their power over a territory of hundreds of millions of light years like the Lord of Chaos, it was nothing difficult for them to radiate a few, a dozen, or even dozens of great worlds nearby. Break through your blockade? That's easy, Sing Hui sneered, and in the next moment, he began to drill into the depths of the endless void. Furthermore, he opened a path with the Scarlet Abyss sword at an extremely fast speed. Before the two supreme experts could surround him, he had already gone deep into the endless void. He's going to the chaotic void? The eight-armed dragon god instantly understood Sing Hui's intentions. Although our great Tao precepts are massive, as I said, we can't be compared to them in terms of utilization. This is like the difference between chaos beings and creation beings. If they really run into the chaos void, they can use a roundabout method to shake us off and then return to the territory of the master of chaos from another place. However, due to our massive size, we can't keep up with their speed at all. We are indeed helpless against their tactics, Emperor Qishao frowned. He hadn't expected his opponent to use such a shameless method. Powerless against him? I don't believe that. I've said it before. If he dares to kill my son, I'll fight him to the death. I'm a man of my word. If he dares to enter the primal chaos void, then I'll chase him into the primal chaos void. My speed might not be as fast as his, but our bodies are several hundred times larger than his. Even though the energy we expend in the primal chaos void will be multiplied by our bodies, in terms of endurance, we'll still be dozens of times faster than him. I'll be able to keep an eye on him from afar. Unless he doesn't return to the territory of the master of primal chaos, we'll intercept him on his way back. We'll make it so that he'll never be able to return to the territory of the master of primal chaos. I'm afraid it'll take a lot of time. Emperor Qishao was a little hesitant. If Sing Hui wanted to return from the chaotic void, the eight-armed dragon god alone wouldn't be able to stop him. He would have to meet up with Qishao, and because this was a tug of war, it would probably take several thousand years if the entire process went smoothly. Moreover, the chaotic void was different from the Lord of Chaos domain. There was chaos chi everywhere. If Sing Hui was forced into a corner and wanted to drag someone down with him, and chose the relatively weaker Emperor Qishao, his life would be in danger. Brother Qishao, if you're willing to help me drive this kid into the primal chaos void and block his path of retreat, I'm willing to give you the special Fortune Divine artifact that you've always wanted as a token of my gratitude. Emperor Qishao's eyes lit up when he heard this. Are you serious? If you don't believe me, I can place restrictions on the creation treasure and give it to you first. In that case, many thanks to the eight-armed dragon god. The eight-armed dragon god carried out his promise to the Qishao Emperor without any hesitation at all. As he chased after Qing Su with the Qishao Emperor, he took out an item. This is the Fortune God artifact I obtained by chance. It can seal away the avatars of chaotic beings. Please take a look. All right, with this treasure, even if I'm unfortunate enough to be targeted by the incarnations of the Master of Gods, or even the Lord of Time, I'll still be able to rely on its mysterious ability to seal incarnations to delay them for a period of time, thus saving my life. Emperor Qishao's face lit up with joy, and he quickly put the creation treasure away. At his level, it wasn't difficult for him to kill ordinary high gods. He was just worried that he'd attract the attention of the Lord of Gods if his actions were too intense, which would lead to the Lord of Gods sending his avatar down to kill him. With this treasure, he could set his sights on some of the high god treasures he'd been coveting. Don't worry, eight-armed dragon god. Leave the matter of stopping this brat from returning to the Lord of Chaos to me. I'll keep a close eye on him, even if I have to spend tens of thousands of years on him. Thank you, Brother Qishao. Let's go. The eight-armed dragon god and Emperor Qishao swiftly chased after Tsing Hui as they spoke. Each of the three sovereigns stood at the pinnacle of powerhouses. Their speed couldn't be described as slow, and in less than 20 years, they'd passed through the domain radiated by the Lord of Chaos. In other words, they'd arrived in the chaotic void of the immortal Tao civilization's broken chaos verse. In the chaotic void, the eight-armed dragon god and Emperor Qishao's speed was noticeably slower due to their size. The distance between them and Tsing Hui gradually increased. However, Tsing Hui's full-speed flight into the depths of the chaotic void naturally left behind many tracks along the way. These tracks became the focus of the eight-armed dragon god and Emperor Qishao's pursuit. 40 years passed in the blink of an eye as the pursuit continued. As far as I know, this brat has only comprehended 3 laws at most. Even if he expends the power of 3 laws in turns, he'll only be able to last 200 or 300 years. However, if he dares to flee into the chaotic void, we can't rule out the possibility that he has a treasure that can greatly offset the corrosion of chaotic chi. If we triple the time, he'll have to leave the chaotic void after 1,000 years. As for us, even if we expend a lot of energy due to our size, it won't be difficult for us to stay in the chaotic void for 3,000 or 4,000 years. As long as we keep a close eye on him, we'll see how he dies. Chapter 925. The Tao Protector's greatest characteristic is their enormous size. While it bestows them with great vitality, it also makes them arrogant and causes them to lack respect for unknown dangers. Tsing Hui's figure darted swiftly through the chaos. He deliberately controlled his speed so that he didn't fly too fast, but he didn't fly too slowly either. He had to be able to shake the eight-armed dragon god and Emperor Qishao off his tail, but not so fast that they couldn't even find a trace of him. Moreover, to make this method less deliberate, he'd thought of circling back more than once, only to be intercepted by the eight-armed dragon god and Emperor Qishao to dispel any suspicions they might have had over time. In the blink of an eye, the 3 of them had been locked in a tug-of-war for 1,000 years. Damn it! It's been 1,000 years. How can the kid still hold on? The eight-armed dragon god cursed inwardly as he followed the trail Tsing Hui had left behind. Eight-armed dragon god, is there a problem with the kid? Emperor Qishao asked with a frown. It shouldn't be a problem. Over the past 100 years, he has obviously tried to return to the territory of His Majesty, the Master of Chaos, many times. It's obvious that he's getting anxious. Besides, we've also seen that this kid does have a divine creation artifact that allows him to withstand the corrosion of the chaotic Yuan Qi. It's because of this that he was able to persist in the chaotic void for 1,000 years. However, when we met him 14 years ago, we noticed that the radiance of his divine creation artifact had completely dimmed. It's obvious that it doesn't have much energy left. Without that divine creation artifact, it's equivalent to him losing his last layer of protection. The eight-armed dragon god said. Emperor Qishao nodded slightly as he recalled the scene when he'd seen Tsing Hui 14 years ago. According to his judgment, Tsing Hui was indeed an arrow at the end of its flight. The trail is getting clearer? After a while, the eight-armed dragon god and the others sensed something. Before long, their gazes landed on the edge of the chaotic space. There was a figure with a weak presence flying towards them at full speed. A trace of joy immediately appeared in the eight-armed dragon god's eyes when he saw this. Haha, we were right. Even if he possesses a fortune artifact, he can only last for 1,000 years at most. Now, he can't hold on any longer. He has no choice but to break through our blockade and return to the territory of the Master of Chaos to recuperate. Emperor Qishao also let out a sigh of relief. However, he still maintained sufficient vigilance. A cornered beast will still fight. The closer it is to the end, the more we can't let our guard down. After all, this kid is an existence close to the level of a sovereign. If we're not careful, the lethality of his final counterattack will still be enough to destroy one of us. Of course, I understand that. Immediately activate our law incarnations and be on full alert. As soon as the 8-armed dragon god finished speaking, a huge torch dragon phantom appeared and instantly filled a territory close to 10 trillion kilometers in radius. This was also because he had deliberately shrunk the size of his law incarnation because he was in the chaotic space. Otherwise, it wouldn't be as simple as 10 trillion kilometers. However, the larger the law incarnation he manifested, the more chaotic Yuan Qi he needed to resist the corrosion. Under the influence of a large amount of chaotic Yuan Qi, even if he just stood there without moving, the consumption of law energy was still dozens of times higher than when he was chasing Tsing Hui not long ago. At this rate, he would face the problem of exhausting his law energy within 100 years. However, it was clear that the final moment of the battle was about to be decided. The 8-armed dragon god couldn't care less about the huge consumption. He didn't want to conserve his law energy and allow Tsing Hui to seize the opportunity to break through their encirclement, causing their efforts to go to waste. Otherwise, his final counterattack before his death would cause one of them to perish together with him. Whoosh! Tsing Hui stirred up chaotic currents and stopped a certain distance away from the 8-armed dragon god, Emperor Qi Shao, and the others. What? Not running anymore. You know you can't escape? Perhaps you can kneel down and beg me now. I might consider sparing your life. The 8-armed dragon god looked at Tsing Hui with a trace of sarcasm and hatred in his eyes. Looks like you guys really want to fight to the death with me, right? Although I don't have much power left, it won't be a problem for me to drag one of you down with me. Do you believe me? Tsing Hui's face was gloomy. Believe? Of course I believe you. But unfortunately, we won't give you the chance. Tsing Hui's eyes fell on Emperor Qi Shao. Your size can't be compared to the 8-armed dragon gods. I may not be able to perish together with him, but I'm not just saying that I want to perish together with you. What? Do you plan to fight to the death for the 8-armed dragon god? Is the relationship between the two of you really that good? As a great master, Emperor Qi Shao naturally had extraordinary willpower. If Tsing Hui could drive a wedge between them with just a few words, he wouldn't have followed the 8-armed dragon god into the chaotic void. On the contrary, Tsing Hui's vicious threats made him see that Tsing Hui was putting on a brave front. He immediately smiled and said, I'd like to see if you really have the chance to perish together with me. Moreover, I believe that the 8-armed dragon god won't just stand by and watch you break through any corner of our defensive line. The 8-armed dragon god hurriedly declared, That's right. Don't worry, Brother Qi Shao. I will stand at the very front and block all of his attacks. Block my attacks? That depends on whether you have the ability to do so. Since you want me to die today, then I'll take off one of your badges. Power of laws. Explode. Tsing Hui roared as Scarlet Abyss exploded with unprecedentedly brilliant sword light. Sword Qi shot into the heavens and into the chaos, forming an astral sword that was 1 trillion kilometers in diameter. When the sword slashed down, the torch dragon body that the 8-armed dragon god had manifested through laws was almost cut in half. Given how deep Tsing Hui had ventured into the chaotic void, even the 8-armed dragon god and Emperor Qi Shao would have to spend 500 years to return. However, that didn't take into account the energy Tsing Hui had to expend when fighting with them. As long as Tsing Hui could expend another 40% of their power through battle, they have to work overtime to return. If they expended 50% of their power, they'd be severely injured even if they returned. As for expending 60% of their power, whether they'd be able to make it back was an unknown. This astral sword, the 8-armed dragon god and Emperor Qi Shao both paled when they saw the might of Tsing Hui's astral sword. This kid is really going all out. If I'm not mistaken, he should already be using a special secret technique to burn his own grand outlaws. However, his secret technique is clearly extraordinary. That's why we can't sense the fluctuations of his grand outlaws. The 8-armed dragon god roared out furiously, and the colossal figure of the seraphic dragon clawed out viciously, swatting towards Qing Su's descending sword intent. The moment the sword intent collided with the seraphic dragon, light erupted. Countless tiny strands of chaotic sword chi wrapped around the seraphic dragon's figure madly, dispersing and obliterating the light of laws that constructed the seraphic dragon's figure. Meanwhile, a claw of the seraphic dragon's figure had been sliced apart by Ching Su's huge sword intent, while the remaining power of the sword intent landed on the seraphic dragon's figure without slowing down at all. The collision of laws and sword chi and light almost cut the colossal seraphic dragon in half. Damn it, this power! Not even the grand derivation Sacred Sovereign's full-powered attack could reach this level. The eight-armed dragon god's expression was unsightly. Sing Hui's sword had weakened the torch dragon's shadow by at least 10%. Even though he was the world protector and possessed a massive body, he would still need to spend hundreds or even thousands of years to recover the power of laws that had been destroyed by Tsing Hui. After blocking Tsing Hui's sword with great difficulty, the eight-armed dragon god did not even have time to catch his breath before a new astral sword was formed. Moreover, the power contained in this sword was even more tyrannical than the previous one. The astral sword not only contained the sharpness of sword chi, but also the vastness, mysteriousness, and fierceness of the torch dragon. Clearly, this astral sword was formed from the great Tao laws of the torch dragon. As expected, this brat must have used a secret art to burn the power of the great Tao laws to create astral swords. The power contained in that attack should have come from the Qilin divine beast. He participated in the battle against the Qilin progenitor with the Grand Development sect, so he must have burned 70, 80, or even 90% of the great Tao laws of the Qilin to be able to unleash such a terrifying attack. Now that he can't use the great Tao laws of the Qilin, he can only use the great Tao laws of the Torch Dragon to fight with his life on the line. According to my understanding, he's only mastered the great Tao laws of the Torch Dragon and the Golden Crow. In other words, as long as you can block this attack and his Golden Crow sword, victory will be in our grasp. Emperor Qishao looked at Qing Su, who had unleashed such a startling strike. Not only was there no fear on his face, but there was also faint joy instead. What could the eight-armed dragon god say about this outcome? He couldn't possibly ask Emperor Qishao to block the attack for him. Could he? He was the enemy that would fight to the death with Tsing Hui. There was no other way but to brace himself and charge. Kill! The eight-armed dragon god roared out. The figure of the divine beast, the Aurora Dragon, produced a dragon's roar that shook up the chaotic space under his roar. It collided with Qing Su's strike viciously. At that moment, even more sword chi and the power of laws exploded. The chaotic energy that had settled down in the entire chaotic space formed visible ripples from the collision of the two powers. It swept out wildly in all directions, vaguely forming a region that seemed like a vacuum. Today, you will die without a doubt. Even if I lose half of my divine beast true body, I will take your life. The eight-armed dragon god roared furiously. The attack just now had cut off another 15% of his true body's power. Hum. The eight-armed dragon god's curses did not last long before a sword aura that was even more violent, domineering, and blazing than the previous two sword auras formed once again. Above the sword aura, there seemed to be phantoms of golden crows revolving around it, emitting a brilliant radiance like that of the sun. As expected, it's the Golden Crow sword. His final attack is coming. Block this attack, and his power of laws will be exhausted. He won't be able to fight back and will be at our mercy. Emperor Qishao yelled from the side. 3 great illusions in life. I can counterattack. Chapter 926. This one's even more powerful than the previous two. Thank goodness it's the last one. The eight-armed dragon god endured it and struck out valiantly again, allowing his clearly damaged torch dragon figure to receive the incoming sword light from the green ruin slash. A new round of clashes ensued. This time, the eight-armed dragon god's torch dragon phantom was almost destroyed by 20%. Taking into account the energy consumption caused by the corrosion of the chaotic energy during their pursuit, the eight-armed dragon god's torch dragon power was only 40% of its peak power. It's over now, isn't it? The eight-armed dragon god panted heavily. Using some kind of secret art, Xing Hui took advantage of the eight-armed dragon god's weakened state to bypass his defenses and appear next to Emperor Qi Shao. At the same time, a supreme treasure that exuded the aura of a creation artifact surged with energy and blossomed with an unprecedented radiance. Xing Hui's maniacal laughter rang out from the radiance. Ha ha ha, eight-armed dragon god, do you think you're my target? If it weren't for Qi Shao, I could have easily retreated from your encirclement and wouldn't have been forced into such a corner. The one I really want to die with is you, Qi Shao. I don't have much law energy left in me, but I have a secret art that can detonate my creation artifact by sacrificing all of my great Dao laws. Therefore, Qi Shao, you'll die with my creation artifact. Rumble. As Xing Hui howled, endless streams of light mixed with terrifying chaos Yuan Qi swiftly spread out. The shadow of a chaotic universe seemed to appear where Emperor Qi Shao was, where a great Dao towered like a pillar to the heavens. Surrounding it were 49 other laws that were a level weaker than the great Dao. However, whether it was the towering law or the remaining 49 laws, they were all wrapped up in powerful streams of light and chaos Yuan Qi and blasted toward Emperor Qi Shao's manifestation of laws. The explosions were so loud that even the chaos void rippled with energy and created a small chaos Yuan Qi storm. There's a secret art that can detonate a creation artifact. Even a creation artifact can be detonated. The eight-armed dragon god shuddered in fear as he watched Qi Shao being bombarded. If that attack had landed on him, it would have probably weakened him by another 20% or even 30% of his power of laws. At that time, it would be very difficult for him to survive the next few centuries and return to the territory of the Master of Chaos with just 10 to 20% of his power of laws remaining. Thank goodness, Xing Hui's target was Emperor Qi Shao. When he thought up to there, the eight-armed dragon god, who originally planned to reinforce Emperor Qi Shao and destroy the fortune artifact with him, actually stopped. He planned to wait for the shockwaves from the explosion to disperse before striking out and completely killing Qing, who was at the end of his rope. It would be best if he could ask Xing Hui about the secret art that could draw out the full power of the creation artifact. Although the secret art wasn't of much use to him, it would greatly strengthen his faction's influence in the domain of the Master of Primal Chaos if he could give it to his descendants and disciples. The power of the creation artifact's explosion continued. Guided by the power of one of the laws, the 49 laws of the Grand Dao continued to bombard Emperor Qi Shao, sweeping up waves of chaos Qi that almost drowned out all light and sound. In the beginning, the eight-armed dragon god still had the patience to wait for the explosion of the destinable artifact to dissipate. But when this kind of explosive power continued for half a day without weakening, the eight-armed dragon god had already sensed that something was wrong. After another 2 hours, the power of law was still as fierce as before, and the eight-armed dragon god immediately understood that he had fallen into a trap. Damn it, what's going on? This creation artifact. The eight-armed dragon god didn't have time to think too much. The torch dragon phantom boldly charged forward like a furious beast that was about to touch a heavenly pillar. It crashed into the chaotic universe, constructed from 50 laws of a universe. The collision of the two forces caused a violent torrent of Yuan Qi that smashed a hole in the chaotic universe, constructed from 50 laws of the universe. Inside the hole, great Emperor Qi Shao, who had been bombarded for half a day, finally found an opportunity. He abruptly broke out of the hole, his face filled with weakness and fear. Chaos creature. A chaos creature. He's a chaos creature. A chaos creature. The eight-armed dragon god was shocked at first. Then he fixed his eyes on the towering pillar of great Dao law at the center of the illusory world. At this moment, he suddenly understood that this was not the manifestation of a divine weapon of fortune, but a brand new law that had been supported by other laws and was about to prove its Tao. A chaos creature. Xing Hui was a chaos creature, and one that was about to prove his Tao. They were actually fighting a chaos creature that was about to fully mature in the chaos void. The eight-armed dragon god was dumbfounded when he figured out the truth. You've screwed me over. Our cooperation ends here. After escaping with the eight-armed dragon god's help, Emperor Qishao flew toward the domain of the Master of Primal Chaos without hesitation. Leave? Did I say you could leave? Xing Hui chuckled faintly. At this time, there was no trace of the madness and exasperation in his tone at the beginning. In order to severely injure Emperor Qishao before the eight-armed dragon god could react, he had even deployed his imperfect, illusory, immortal Tao civilization to weaken Emperor Qishao as quickly as possible. For that, he paid the price of the illusory, immortal Tao civilization being struck by the eight-armed dragon god's torch dragon laws. If it weren't for the fact that the illusory, immortal Tao civilization had gradually stabilized and had the fortune jade as its foundation, it would have been in danger of collapsing in the past. Fortunately, such a great sacrifice was well worth it. Emperor Qishao's strength had been weakened by almost 40%. How could he let Emperor Qishao escape unscathed under such circumstances? Xing Hui gave chase almost as soon as Emperor Qishao fled. Scarlet Abyss manifested an enormous sword aura and slashed down once more. He'd already exhausted 80% of the great Tao laws of the Golden Crow, Qilin, and Torch Dragon, but he still had 3 other great Tao laws left. What he deployed now was a sword of laws corresponding to chaos divine beasts. Emperor Qishao immediately shouted when he sensed the power of laws within the sword that was enough to cause him great harm. Sword God Xing Hui, I'm not your opponent. The eight-armed dragon god is your true opponent. There's no need for you to exhaust your strength on me. After learning that Xing Hui was a chaos being, the eight-armed dragon god fully understood that he couldn't rely on the environment of the chaos to exhaust Xing Hui to death. In fact, his opponent could even use guerrilla tactics to drag him to death in the chaos after he'd exhausted 60% of his strength. Therefore, he made a prompt decision without hesitation. Qishao, the two of us must do our best to work together to save our lives. Otherwise, we'll both die here. Noisy. Xing Hui's sword turned and slashed down with a sword that contained the great Tao laws of chaos. Once again, it landed on the eight-armed dragon god's projection of the torch divine beast, causing a large amount of nomological light to fall from his body. Instantly, the eight-armed dragon god, who was already extremely weak, was in an even worse state. Qishao, you're right. My true opponent is the eight-armed dragon god. However, since you've teamed up with him to kill me, it's impossible for you to leave without paying a price. Therefore, you must take out something sufficient to redeem your life. Xing Hui slashed again without any delay. The 5th terrifying sword aura condensed from the great Tao laws formed once more. I have it. I have it. I'm willing to use a divine creation artifact to redeem my life and bury the hatchet with you. Sword God Xing Hui. Great Emperor Qishao couldn't help but tremble when he saw that Xing Hui had condensed a 5th great Tao law. He hurriedly threw out the divine creation artifact that the eight-armed dragon god had given him earlier. This is my redeeming item. Sword God Xing Hui, don't worry. Qishao, will never make an enemy of you from now on. After he finished speaking, his figure drifted away. Without waiting for Xing Hui to reply, he had already rushed towards the territory of the Master of Chaos. Fool, do you really think I'll let you go? Only by working together can we save our lives. Otherwise, both of us will die here today. The eight-armed dragon god was shocked and furious when he saw that great Emperor Qishao had abandoned him and fled. Eight-armed dragon god, do you think I don't know your true colors? You clearly had the chance to stop Sword God Xing Hui from rescuing me, but you chose to stand by and watch. Why else would I have to do this? You're the one who'll fight to the death with Sword God Xing Hui, not me. I've already shown my sincerity, and I'm sure Sword God Sing Hui will keep his word. You can decide the rest yourself. Great Emperor Qixiao's voice reverberated through the primal chaos, and he fled even faster. Qing Su clenched his hand and quickly caught the fortune artifact that Emperor Qixiao had tossed out. However, when he caught it, he discovered that there was actually a restriction on it. A restriction set up by the eight-armed dragon god and closely related to his aura. If he wanted to break this restriction, he would either have to ask the eight-armed dragon god to act personally, or kill the eight-armed dragon god. That's a good plan. Do I have to kill the eight-armed dragon god if I want to use this divine creation artifact? Sing Hui sneered. He saw through Great Emperor Qixiao's plan with a single glance, but he didn't pursue the matter. Instead, his gaze landed on the eight-armed dragon god. Since you've chosen to fight to the death with me, I'll fulfill your wish now. As his consciousness spread out, Sing Hui's giant sword formed from the laws of the fifth great Tao slashed down again at the torch dragon god. Chapter 9:27. A chaos being? Is this the terror of a chaos being? Despair flashed through the eight-armed dragon god's eyes when he saw Sing Hui condense his fifth law aura sword. He could still block the sword, but once he did, the remaining power in his body would no longer be able to return to the domain of the Lord of Chaos. Therefore, it no longer mattered whether he could block the sword or not. For a moment, he was filled with regret. If he had known that Sing Hui was such a powerful chaos being, he would never have chosen to use the chaotic void as a battlefield. That way, even if he was no match for him, he could at least escape with his life intact. Once his identity as a chaos being was exposed, the great Lord of Chaos would never let him off so easily. Unfortunately, he no longer had the chance to regret. Even more pitiful was that now, he could not even take Qing Su down with him. All he could do was let out a futile roar and completely disregard his avatar of the laws of the Torch Dragon. He tried his best to deal enough damage to the enemy before him. A deathbed struggle. Sing Hui slashed down, and the incarnation of the eight-armed dragon god's law incarnation was weakened once more. However, just as he was about to unleash the final strike, he paused for a moment. He had already consumed 5 of the 6 laws he cultivated, leaving only the law of space represented by the divine beast Kuanping. He could quickly kill the eight-armed dragon god with this strike and have enough time to chase after Emperor Qixiao. But correspondingly, once he consumed most of the power of the 6 laws, he would definitely be caught in a long battle with Emperor Qixiao. Moreover, it would probably take him several thousand years to recover the power of laws. Before that, his battle prowess would be at a relatively low level. If something were to happen during this time, he would lack the ability to deal with it. After killing Grand Monarch Gu Ka and Emperor Qixiao, I'll be able to obtain 2 law fragments. It'll probably take me a lot of time to refine them. Moreover, my battle with the eight-armed dragon god and Emperor Qixiao took place in the Chaos Void. As long as I don't attack their worlds right away, who would know that I killed them? Naturally, no one will be able to guess my weakness. Sing Hui's hesitation was overturned in a split second. In the next moment, the Sword of Laws represented by the mythical beast Kuanping had condensed once again. 6 types of laws? So it turns out that we were all deceived by you. The eight-armed dragon god, who had been weakened to the extreme, looked at Sing Hui with despair in his eyes. He already knew what was going to happen to him, and immediately began to curse wildly. The news that you are a being of chaos will definitely not be hidden for long. One day, your identity will be exposed, and when that time comes, the great master of chaos will definitely not let you go. I will wait for you on the road to the underworld. Sing Hui remained indifferent as he slashed down with his sword. The sword light and the precepts continuously melted away as they collided. In the end, the torch dragon body manifested by the eight-armed dragon god was completely annihilated by the sword light and returned to nothingness. One after another, top existences on the strongest divine list silently fell in the chaotic void. Besides Tsing Hui and Emperor Qi Shao, no one else knew about it. It really isn't easy to kill a sovereign without an absolute advantage. Transforming one's body into the Tao is too difficult to deal with. It's no wonder that the Qilin progenitor is dozens of times stronger than the Grand Development Holy Sage, the Lord of Giant Dragon City, and the others. Even though he's 10 times stronger than the Grand Development Holy Sage, the Lord of Giant Dragon City, and the White Emperor, due to his unique characteristics, the Grand Development sect still dared to encircle and annihilate the Qilin progenitor. They even tore off many fragments of laws from his body. Ultimately, it's because he's tenacious and difficult to kill. That's why there's an opportunity. Qing Su looked at the 8-armed dragon god that had been obliterated in the void. He finally gained a clear understanding of his own position. It's not difficult for me to kill those 1-vein, 2-vein, and 3-vein existences right now, but it'll still take me some time. As for sovereigns, even if it's not difficult for me to defeat those who are close to the sovereign level, killing them will require a combination of various factors, such as time, place, and so on. As for reaching the level where I can kill sovereigns without external assistance, I'll probably have to wait until I've refined 7 or even 8 laws of the world before I could do that, even with the obvious advantages of the virtual immortal civilization and the Scarlet Abyss sword. As for obtaining an obvious advantage over a sovereign, or even an overwhelming advantage, he'd have to wait until he'd refined 10 or even 11 types of laws. At that level, his battle prowess wouldn't be much inferior to the Qilin progenitor, a divine beast ancestor who wasn't proficient in killing. I can't let go of the fragment of laws on Emperor Qi Shao either. Tsing Hui panted slightly and absorbed a great deal of chaos qi to replenish himself. Unfortunately, this kind of replenishment could only make the immortal Tao civilization world more stable. Although he could use the immortal Tao civilization world to convert chaos yuan qi into great Tao laws and achieve the goal of replenishing the power of laws, the efficiency was too slow. It was better to wait until he returned to the domain of the Master of Chaos before doing so. It's still a virtual immortal Tao civilization in the end. Even if it possesses a trace of the characteristics of a true chaos life form, it's still too early for it to be one. Tsing Hui sighed and quickly followed the tracks left behind by Emperor Qi Shao. Emperor Qi Shao himself knew that he was on the brink of death, so he'd done everything he could to escape. Alas, the difference in speed between the two was obvious, and unlike the outside world, the tracks left behind in the chaos were too obvious. Like footprints in the snow, people would be able to track them down even centuries later. This was why Emperor Qi Shao and the 8-armed dragon god had been able to keep up with Tsing Hui. But now, the tracks they'd been able to easily find back then had become a curse that would hasten Emperor Qi Zhao's death. In less than 3 years, Tsing Hui had caught up to Emperor Qi Shao. However, when he caught up to Emperor Qi Shao, the latter sensed Qing Su's presence as well. His face immediately changed drastically. How is this possible? According to my estimations, even if the 8-armed dragon god is at the end of his rope, you'll need a decade or 2 at the very least to kill him. Don't tell me. You've directly abandoned him in the chaotic space and left him to fend for himself? Aren't you afraid that he'll have something up his sleeve and return to the domain of the Master of Chaos in the end? Tsing Hui's expression didn't change, and he didn't even want to respond. He only continued to close the distance between them. Sword Divine Tsing Hui, you said you'd let me go. I've already given you a creation artifact as compensation. You can't go back on your word. Emperor Qi Shao yelled. Compensation? You want a creation artifact that you can't even use as compensation? Is Emperor Qi Zhao's life that cheap? Moreover, even a true creation artifact won't be enough to save your life. Anger and humiliation flashed through Emperor Qi Zhao's eyes. What do you want? Tsing Hui didn't respond. Instead, he swiftly swung his sword after bringing Emperor Qi Shao into his attack range. Though he'd used up most of the power of the 6 great Tao laws in his body, he still had the power of the Tao of unity. Moreover, with the construction of the illusory world of immortal Tao, The destructive power of the Tao of Unity was far greater than the other great Taos in the chaos. With a slash of his sword Qi crisscrossed and traversed hundreds of millions of kilometers, piercing through Emperor Qi Xiao's true form of laws like beams of laser light. Xing Hui, are you really going to kill me to the last? Emperor Qi Xiao roared in terror, but he was cowardly on the inside. Xing Hui answered him with a barrage of sword lights. Emperor Qi Xiao finally fell into despair. If you want me to die, I'll drag you down with me first. It was the same scene as when Xing Hui had pretended to be at the end of his rope when Emperor Qi Xiao and the eight-armed dragon god had forced him. However, Xing Hui's madness and despair had been an act, while Emperor Qi Xiao was acting from the bottom of his heart. Drag me down with you? Xing Hui chuckled faintly. He didn't fight Emperor Qi Xiao at all when he saw the latter lunging at him. Instead, he retreated rapidly, using his advantage in speed to quickly widen the distance between them. The Tao Protector was enormous in size and shockingly resistant to attacks, but he was like a sturdy tortoise shell. He had no redeeming qualities when it came to speed. Emperor Qi Xiao immediately understood Xing Hui's intentions when he saw this, and his face paled. Fight to the death? He couldn't catch up. Fight? He couldn't win. Stall for time? In the chaos, how could a Tao Protector stall for time against a true chaos being? Even if he could hold on for a few thousand years, it was possible that after a few thousand years, his strength would have been depleted by the corrosion of the chaos Yuan Qi. On the other hand, the chaos creature would be able to refine the chaos Yuan Qi and recover its depleted strength to its peak. For a time, Emperor Qi Xiao could only curse and roar in despair. He had no hope of survival at all. Xing Hui fully displayed the spirit of advancing when the enemy retreated and retreating when the enemy advanced. He didn't hesitate to spend an entire 40 years to exhaust Emperor Qi Xiao to death. In the end, this near-sovereign ended up in the same state as the eight-armed dragon god. There was no grand, earth-shattering, or epic battle. Just like that, Xing Hui whittled away the last strand of power of law. His consciousness collapsed, and he fell into nothingness for all eternity. It's finally over. Xing Hui sighed. Even though he had maintained an absolute advantage in the later stages of the battle, this kind of battle where he didn't dare to relax and fought for 40 years without rest was still a high-intensity test for him. After this battle, he understood even more why the circle of great masters was relatively calm. Fortunately, I've obtained the two fragments. Once I refine them, I won't have to rely on the chaotic void to do things even if I have to kill an ultimate powerhouse. Xing Hui smiled faintly. Not only had he completed his mission, he had also obtained additional rewards. He was returning home with a bountiful harvest. Only 2 chapters today. Chapter 928. I'm back. Xing Hui looked at the void world that was gradually giving birth to the great path laws. A trace of exhaustion flashed through his eyes. For someone like him who had cultivated for less than 10,000 years, a battle that had lasted for such a long time was already unprecedented. Fortunately, although the process was arduous, it was nothing compared to the bountiful harvest. I'll think about it after I get those law fragments. Xing Hui identified the direction and quickly traveled in the direction of the war zone. In less than 6 years, he had already appeared in the war zone. At this moment, both Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword and Venerable Gu Xuanzuan had put aside all their matters and waited patiently in Venerable Gu Xuanzuan's world. The news that Xing Hui had killed Supreme Venerable Gu Sha had already spread. However, it was not difficult to kill Grand Venerable Gu Ka. Any supreme expert could kill him if they were prepared. The key was how to prevent the eight-armed dragon god, who was ranked on the Supreme Divine list, from taking revenge after killing Grand Venerable Gu Ka. In particular, according to the news they had received, the eight-armed dragon god was not the only one who had gone to take revenge on Xing Hui. Great Emperor Qi Xiao, who was close to an ultimate expert, was also there. The power that these 2 ultimate experts could unleash when they joined forces was something that even the master of the Grand Development Gate had to avoid temporarily. Now that Sing Hui was being chased by these two, the odds were stacked against him. This made Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword and Venerable Gu Xuanzuan even more anxious. Fortunately, this anxiety had lasted until today and was finally coming to an end. When Sing Hui entered Venerable Gu Xuanzuan's world, Venerable Gu Xuanzuan, who had managed this world until it was impregnable, immediately sensed it. We sensed that the power of law was somewhat familiar. Venerable Gu Xuanzuan's face immediately lit up with surprise. Sword God Sing Hui. Sword God Sing Hui. It's Sword God Sing Hui. He's back. He's back. He escaped the pursuit of the eight-armed dragon god and great Emperor Qi Shao. Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword's face was also filled with joy. The two of them immediately walked out of the palace and soared into the sky to welcome him from afar. Sing Hui, who moved through space extremely quickly, appeared before Gu Xuanzuan and Dragon Sword Heavenly Exalt in a short while. Both Gu Xuanzuan and Dragon Sword Heavenly Master heaved a sigh of relief when they saw that Sing Hui's aura was slightly weak but unscathed. Sword God Sing Hui, it's great that you're all right. We've already heard that you went to the Heavenly Face Great World to kill Supreme Sovereign Gu Sha and were hunted down by the eight-armed dragon god and Emperor Qi Shao. Unfortunately, the two of us are too weak to be of any use against those existences who are close to the level of sovereigns. We can only wait here anxiously. Fortunately, you're all right. It's great that you're all right, Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword said joyfully. Gu Xuanzuan nodded heavily. In the end, he bowed to Sing Hui with even more seriousness. Sword God Sing Hui, thank you for taking action and avenging me. From now on, you're my greatest benefactor. If you have any orders, I'll do my best. You're too kind, Gu Xuanzuan. Sing Hui nodded to Gu Xuanzuan. You've already paid your due. This is different, Gu Xuanzuan said respectfully. Sword God Sing Hui, please come with me. Sing Hui understood Gu Xuanzuan's meaning and immediately followed him to the small world and to the center of the palace where the two fragments of laws were kept. Gu Xuanzuan happily handed the two fragments to Sing Hui. Sword God Sing Hui, from now on, these two fragments of laws belong to you. Thank you for everything you've done for me. I'll always remember this kindness in my heart. Sing Hui accepted the two fragments of laws with great satisfaction. It was not in vain that he had spent so much effort to kill the three top experts. With this fragment of laws and the fragment of laws from Great Emperor Qi Shao, he would have refined 8 types of law fragments. At that time, he would be able to consider provoking the divine beast primogenitors even without the Great Development Gate's help. If he could tear off some of the power of laws from the divine beast primogenitors and condense them into fragments of laws, it wouldn't take long for him to gather all of them. Congratulations, Sword God Sing Hui. If Sword God Sing Hui can refine all of these fragments of laws in the next period of time, you'll probably become a sovereign. No, that's not right. Sword God Sing Hui is different from ordinary sovereigns. Ordinary sovereigns don't have the strength to unleash the full power of a creation artifact. If Sword God Sing Hui can refine 7 types of laws, in addition to the power of a creation artifact, the strongest person in the territory of the Master of Primal Chaos might not necessarily be the Black and White Exalts, who are equivalent to the representatives of the Master of Primal Chaos. Exalted Celestial Master Dragon's word complimented with a smile. It's not easy to refine 7 types of laws. I've heard that after refining 4 types of laws, there's a chance of failure. The higher the level, the higher the chance of failure. Many deacons at the 6th vein level have refined 3 or 4 times, but without exception, they've all failed. Even the elders of the Great Development Gate have failed many times. Therefore, I'm satisfied that these 4 fragments can push me to the 4 vein level. As for higher levels, I don't dare imagine, Sing Hui said modestly. He couldn't afford to be too high profile right now. Although the Master of Chaos couldn't compare to the Master of Gods or the Master of Time in terms of control over the living beings in his territory, this didn't mean that he completely ignored the living beings in his territory. Even if he didn't care, if Sing Hui's performance was too dazzling, it would attract the attention of Exalted Black and White. Exalted Black and White were the spokespeople of the Master of Chaos. They practically represented the will of the Master of Chaos. Once he reported his situation to the Master of Chaos, the Master of Chaos would direct his attention to him. At that time, he couldn't guarantee that the Master of Chaos wouldn't be able to see through his secrets. Haha, I don't know if others can succeed, but Sword God Sing Hui, your growth can be said to be legendary. Over the years, many people have secretly learned about your growth process, and it has begun to spread in the starry sky. Everyone who mentions you, Sword God Sing Hui, is full of praise. They claim that you're the child of destiny, and their tone is full of envy. Therefore, if you can refine 7 types of laws in 10,000 years and become a true powerhouse, I believe that it won't cause too much of a surprise. Exalted Celestial Master Dragon's Word said with a smile. My growth experience has already begun to spread in the starry sky. Sing Hui understood that this was because his performance in the battle with the Chilean ancestor had been too high profile. Although he'd borrowed the power of the divine creation weapon to display battle strength close to that of a sovereign, but sovereigns were already at the peak of the world. Regardless of the reason, being able to erupt with such battle strength was bound to garner widespread attention. With so much attention, it was reasonable for his past to be unearthed one by one. Looks like I have to hurry. If I lived in the territory of the Master of Gods or the Master of Time, I'm afraid that I would have already been exposed to the eyes of these 2 supreme existences. Even a Master of Chaos, who usually doesn't care much. It's only a matter of time before he turns his attention to me. Sing Hui felt a faint sense of urgency in his heart. By the way, Sword God Sing Hui, how did you escape the pursuit of the 8-armed dragon god and Emperor Qi Shao? Dragon's Word Celestial Master asked curiously at this time. Sing Hui glanced at Dragon's Word Celestial Master and Gu Xuanzuan. He could feel that these 2 great masters were truly grateful to him from the bottom of their hearts, even if in fact their relationship back then had begun as a transaction. Considering that the news of him killing Emperor Qi Shao would eventually be exposed, he had no choice but to weave a perfect lie to prevent others from benefiting from the legacies of Emperor Qi Shao and the 8-armed dragon god. The 8-armed dragon god and Emperor Qi Shao should have already fallen. Sing Hui organized his thoughts and said slowly. At the same time, a trace of lingering fear appeared on his face. Dragon's Word, Celestial Master, and Gu Xuanzuan's eyes widened when they heard this. Fallen? Gu Xuanzuan couldn't help but ask again, Sword God Sing Hui, what did you say? Did you just say that the 8-armed dragon god and Emperor Qi Shao are dead? I didn't see the 8-armed dragon god die, but from what Emperor Qi Shao said, he should be dead. As for Emperor Qi Shao, he died at my hands. This I can confirm. Dragon's Word Celestial Master and Gu Xuanzuan looked at each other and couldn't help but gasp at the same time. Dead? Both the 8-armed dragon god and Emperor Qi Shao are dead? This Sword God Sing Hui, what happened? Sing Hui couldn't suppress a trace of shock in his eyes. He took a deep breath to calm himself down and said, You should know that when I killed Supreme Sovereign Gu Sha and was blocked by the 8-armed dragon god and Emperor Qi Shao, I could only choose to escape into the chaos void to find an opportunity. Because I have a supreme treasure that can resist the corrosion of the chaos void, I plan to use the unique environment of the chaos void to shake them off. Dragon's Word, Celestial Master, nodded solemnly. They already knew that Sing Hui had a supreme treasure that could resist the corrosion of the chaos void when he chased after Supreme Sovereign Colossal Beast. After I entered the chaos void, I thought I could shake off Emperor Qi Shao and the 8-armed dragon god. But the 8-armed dragon god promised me something and persuaded Emperor Qi Shao to enter the chaos void with him. I had no chance of escaping at all, so I had no choice but to continue deeper into the chaos void in hopes of avoiding them through a long detour. I'm sorry for putting you in danger, Sword God Sing Hui, Gu Xuanzuan said apologetically. He could imagine how dangerous Sing Hui's situation was at that time. Although it was reasonable to avoid the eight-armed dragon god and Emperor Qishao by taking a detour, it would undoubtedly be much more dangerous. Then what happened? Dragon's word, Celestial Master asked impatiently. Then when we entered the depths of the chaos void, we encountered a terrifying existence. As Tsing Hui spoke slowly, the fear in his eyes deepened. A terrifying existence. In the depths of the chaos void, Dragon's word, Celestial Master, and Gu Xuanzuan suddenly thought of something and couldn't help exclaiming at the same time, "An evil god!" Chapter 929. The Evil God. Tsing Hui nodded solemnly, confirming their words. The two great masters sucked in a breath of cold air again, feeling the hairs on their bodies stand on end. The evil god? You've actually encountered the true body of the evil god? It must be the true body of the evil god that's cruising through the chaos void. My goodness, you've actually encountered such a terrifying existence and survived. Tsing Hui rejoiced when he heard this. Yes, I also find it unbelievable that we've survived. However, it's mainly because we're close to the Master of Chaos. Although we've been in the chaos void for hundreds of years, compared to the Master of Chaos' greatness and size, we're still just flying beside him. The evil god might have accidentally cruised so close to the Master of Chaos. As for the danger we've encountered, it's only because we've been affected by the evil god. Perhaps the evil god hasn't even looked at us or sensed our presence. Dragon's word, Celestial Master, and Celestial Master, Gu Xuanzuan nodded in agreement. They were both top existences at the level of great masters and had once seen the tip of the iceberg of the Master of Chaos' enormous size from afar. They naturally understood that compared to the great Master of Chaos, these so-called great masters were, in fact, no more than a strand of hair on a person's body. Hundreds or thousands of strands of hair would naturally fall off and grow every day, so no one would pay too much attention to them. It was just like how a person wouldn't notice a strand of hair falling off the person in front of them. However, although they couldn't notice that strand of hair, the breeze created when they brushed past each other was enough to sweep that strand of hair far away. However, if the hair was blown far away by the wind, there would be no consequences. But for those almighty experts in the chaos void, if they were caught in the energy ripples and chaotic energy ripples brought by the true body of the evil god, they would definitely die. Because we saw the evil god's true body from afar and were swept away by the chaos chi of the evil god's movement, the three of us were separated. The eight-armed dragon god was swept into the depths of the chaos void due to his enormous size, and I estimate that he was at least tens of thousands of years away. Emperor Qishao was struck by the chaos chi and was gravely injured. I, on the other hand, was the smallest and was only swept a few hundred years away. That's why I wasn't trapped and lost. Tens of thousands of years away. If that's the case, the eight-armed dragon god is dead for sure. Celestial Master Dragon's sword said with certainty. Celestial Master Gu nodded excitedly. That's right. Although the eight-armed dragon god was an extremely powerful world protector, he could only survive for 4,000 or 5,000 years in the chaos void. Even if the chaos chi storm didn't cause him any harm when it swept him away, he still wouldn't be able to return to the great master of chaos territory. Moreover, if he was swept away by the chaos chi storm, it would be a light injury to his vitality, and he might even die. Tsing Hui nodded. That's why I've deduced that the eight-armed dragon god is dead as well. Haha, in the chaos void, the bigger the body, the bigger the target, and the greater the possibility of being affected by the chaos chi storm. The eight-armed dragon god and Emperor Qishao were courting death. Celestial Master Gu was very happy, although his enemy was Grand Monarch Gu Sha. If it weren't for the eight-armed dragon god, how could he have dared to be so arrogant and domineering? Strictly speaking, the eight-armed dragon god was the culprit behind everything. However, because the eight-armed dragon god was so powerful that Celestial Master Gu didn't even have the courage to fight him, he only mentioned asking Tsing Hui to kill Grand Monarch Gu Sha and didn't mention the eight-armed dragon god. Now that the eight-armed dragon god had died in the Chaos Chi storm, he was naturally overjoyed. What about Emperor Qi Shao? What happened to you? Emperor Qi Shao and I were swept away by the Chaos Chi storm, but we weren't far away. When we were about to return to the Master of Chaos territory, I ran into Emperor Qi Shao, who was at the end of his rope. I'm sure you two have already guessed what happened next. Naturally, I wouldn't show mercy to someone like him, so I took advantage of the fact that he had less than a tenth of his strength left to grind him to death. Great! Celestial Master Dragon's sword slapped the table and exclaimed, "How satisfying! Haha! The fate of the eight-armed dragon god and Emperor Qi Shao is indeed worth celebrating." Celestial Master Gu was overjoyed. However, Tsing shook his head and said, "It's not the time to congratulate them yet. We know about the death of the eight-armed dragon god and Emperor Qi Shao, but others don't know about it yet. I think we must take advantage of the fact that this news hasn't spread out to attack their countries as soon as possible and plunder their treasures." Celestial Master Dragon Sword and Celestial Master Gu Xian immediately became serious when they heard this. The eight-armed dragon god and Emperor Qi Shao were both at the pinnacle of the Master of Chaos territory. The eight-armed dragon god, in particular, was ranked on the strongest god list. It didn't take a genius to figure out how many resources he had collected over the years. That's right. We must do this as soon as possible. Otherwise, once their subordinates find out about their deaths through other means, they will definitely plunder all their resources. Celestial Master Dragon Sword said. Tsing Hui nodded slightly and said, "You two should have seen my current state. It's not good to make too much of a fuss. I'm telling you this because I hope you can come forward and plunder the treasures left behind by the eight-armed dragon god and Emperor Qi Shao. When the time comes, I'm willing to share the treasures with you." Sword God Tsing Hui, what are you talking about? Not only did you help me kill Supreme Sovereign Gu Sha, but you also indirectly caused the death of the eight-armed dragon god. This is a great favor. I, Celestial Master Gu Xian, am already very grateful for this. How would I dare to take the spoils of war from Tsing Hui? That's right. I'm good friends with Celestial Master Gu Xian. Sword God Tsing Hui has helped Celestial Master Gu Xian a great deal, which means you've helped me a great deal. What's more, I still owe Sword God Tsing Hui a great favor from the battle against Emperor Qi Shao and the eight-armed dragon god. The two of us didn't do anything in the battle against Emperor Qi Shao and the eight-armed dragon god. How can we take the spoils? Therefore, the matter of sharing the spoils equally can't be mentioned again. Both of you, please calm down and listen to what I have to say. Tsing Hui gestured with his hand to stop the two from speaking. He then said, "Although Emperor Qi Shao and the eight-armed dragon god are both dead as supreme experts, how great are the forces they've built up over the years? Let's not talk about the eight-armed dragon god for now. Let's talk about Emperor Qi Shao. As far as I know, although Emperor Qi Shao's empire didn't have a second great medium, there were at least 60 sovereigns. When the 60 sovereigns worked together and formed a battle formation with some supremes, their deterrence wasn't inferior to an ordinary great medium's. With the forces behind me, it's impossible to swallow such a powerful force. Therefore, I can only rely on the forces behind you to deal with them. Since you've mobilized your forces, how can you not take the spoils? Even if the two of you are willing to help, the forces under your command will probably complain, right? How dare they?" Gu Xuanzun and Dragon Sword Heavenly Master shouted without hesitation. "I can't let them work for nothing. If the two of you don't agree, I'll have to wait until I recover and do it myself. However, the fastest I can do that is probably 1,000 years later. By then, Emperor Qi Shao and the eight-armed dragon god's forces will definitely be alerted. By then, we won't know how much of the spoils we'll have left." Tsing Hui said. Dragon Sword Heavenly Master and Gu Xuanzun saw Tsing Hui's resolute attitude and hesitated for a while before finally agreeing. "All right, if that's the case, we'll do as Sword God Tsing Hui says. However, we can't split the spoils 3-3. Although we'll mobilize our forces to wipe out the eight-armed dragon god and Emperor Qi Shao, with us two great mediums help, it won't take too much effort. Therefore, we'll each take 10%. What do you think? That's right, 10% is enough. Seeing this, Sing Hui didn't insist. Then I'll have to trouble the two of you. Huh, it's nothing to be troubled about. I've been thinking about wiping out the eight-armed dragon god's forces for many years. Now that sword god Sing Hui has placed such a precious opportunity in front of me, I'll gladly accept it even if I don't take a single cent, since Gu Xuanzuan has accepted the task of dealing with the eight-armed dragon god. Leave Emperor Qi Shao to me. Dragon Sword Heavenly Master smiled and nodded. Then I'll have to trouble the two of you. Sword God Sing Hui, don't worry. You just need to recuperate as soon as possible. Once you've fully recovered, we'll have completely wiped out the forces of the eight-armed dragon god and Emperor Qi Shao. At that time, we'll definitely send you all the benefits. Sing Hui considered that he was now being valued more and more, and it would be unsafe for him to continue cultivating in seclusion in the territory of the Master of Primal Chaos. He immediately said, I plan to refine a few fragments of laws one by one while I'm recuperating, so I'm afraid I'll be away for a long time. I'll have to trouble the two of you to send the benefits to the Divine Wilderness Great World to promote its development. The Divine Wilderness Great World? All the resources will be sent to the Divine Wilderness Great World? Dragon Sword Heavenly Master was slightly taken aback. Those are the assets of the eight-armed dragon god and Emperor Qi Shao. With those assets, let alone nurturing a group of sovereigns, I'm afraid they can even nurture a few sovereigns. If they're all used in the Divine Wilderness Great World, wouldn't it be a little, at present, the Divine Wilderness Great World is the only one that has a lot to do with me. Since I can't use these things, who else can I give them to? Sing Hui said with a smile. Dragon Sword Heavenly Master and Gu Xuanzuan couldn't help but laugh when they heard this. We've forgotten that Sword God Sing Hui has only grown for a short time. You don't have a large family to feed. The Divine Wilderness Great World is all the forces under your command. I'd like to be like the two of you and have a huge force under your command. When you want to do something, you just have to give the order, and countless people will be at your beck and call. Haha, Sword God Sing Hui. If you need it, you just have to spread the news. I believe there will definitely be countless people willing to pledge their allegiance to you. Then forget it. It's better to nurture such people from a young age. I don't want to be kicked when I'm down by the people around me, when I'm in danger one day. Dragon Sword Heavenly Master and Gu Xuanzuan nodded. Although the forces from the outside world could not be said to be untrustworthy, they still couldn't be compared to the forces that he had personally nurtured. All right, there's no time to lose. I'll go into seclusion and cultivate now. Once the forces under Emperor Qi Shao and the eight-armed dragon god are cleared, I'll leave the two of you alone. Dragon Sword Heavenly Master and Gu Xuanzuan stood up solemnly. Sword God Sing Hui, don't worry. The two of us won't let you down. Chapter 9:30. Thousand Moon Great World. It was a famous great world in the territory of the Master of Chaos. This big world was famous because it contained more than 1,000 small worlds. These 1,000 small worlds circled around the outer orbit of the Thousand Moon Big World, emitting a faint silver-white light. They looked like 1,000 moons, so it was called the Thousand Moon Big World. At the same time, the Thousand Moon Great World was the capital of the Silver Moon Empire, a large empire formed by thousands of nearby great worlds. The Emperor of the Silver Moon Empire was a female cultivator with a 5-vein cultivation base. Her title in the Great Development Sect was the Silver Moon Empress. This empire was originally a large empire with close to 4,000 large worlds as vassals. But ever since Great Emperor Qi Shao made a great contribution over 10,000 years ago and obtained a divine weapon of creation that was completely compatible with his attribute, the situation quickly changed. Relying on the might of the fortune artifact, Great Emperor Qi Shao had rapidly expanded his empire from a mere 300 major worlds to 8,000 major worlds in 10,000 years. A small portion of these 8,000 major worlds had come from swallowing up the Silver Moon Empire. Under Great Emperor Qi Zhao's annexation, the Silver Moon Empire, which had been extremely powerful, declined to the extreme. Now, there were only 1,300 great worlds left to maintain the empire's rule. This was because the Silver Feather Empress had formed an alliance with the King of the Night, who had a six-vein cultivation base 2,000 years ago. With the help of the King of the Night's power, they had resisted Great Emperor Qi Zhao's attack. Otherwise, the Silver Moon Empire might not even have 1,000 great worlds left. After Tsing Hui separated from Dragon Sword Holy Master and Gu Xian Holy Master, he went directly to the territory of the Silver Feather Empire. As he was also a member of the Great Development Sect and had been proven to possess battle strength close to that of an ultimate expert, when he arrived at the Silver Feather Empire and expressed his intention to visit the Silver Feather Empress, he was warmly escorted by the border guards. Along the way, all the teleportation portals were open for him. Almost every time he arrived at a teleportation portal, the next one would be ready for him. With this amazing efficiency, it took him less than 3 days to arrive at the teleportation portal of the Thousand Moon Great World. At this moment, the transmitting formation outside the Thousand Moon Great World had been cordoned off. Numerous high-level officials of the Silver Feather Empire were waiting outside the transmitting formation. Not far away, there was a large guard of honor, for divine beasts of Kylan were pulling the carriages. Moreover, they were supreme divine beasts of Kylan. In the Silver Feather Empire, this was the kind of treatment that was used to welcome powerful emperors from the outside. However, even though Tsing Hui had never established his own empire, his strength was close to that of an immortal. His influence was not below that of any of the top empires. It was completely reasonable for the Silver Moon Empire to welcome him with such a ceremony. Tsing Hui, who had wanted to keep a low profile, shook his head when he saw the many high-ranking officials of the Silver Feather Empire gathered around the teleportation formation. "I'm just here to visit the Silver Moon Empress for a small matter. You don't have to make such a big fuss. Now that the esteemed Green Ruin Sword God has come in person, it's only right for our Silver Moon Empire to show as much enthusiasm as we can. If it weren't for the fact that we didn't have enough time, we could even prepare a welcoming ceremony for the Green Ruin Sword God." Among the many high-ranking officials of the Silver Moon Empire, a graceful woman in a sky-blue long dress with wide sleeves and a crown on her head bowed with a smile. She was the most outstanding descendant of the Silver Moon Empress, Princess Lan Ying. She was also the crown prince of the Silver Moon Empire. Her Majesty has been waiting in the meeting hall for a long time. "Sword God Tsing Hui, please come with me." After saying that, Princess Lan Ying smiled and extended her slender right hand. This was the symbol of the Silver Moon Empire's enthusiasm for walking together hand in hand. It was usually only shown to the most distinguished guests. If it was a woman who made this gesture, it would indirectly express the woman's love for the other party. Tsing Hui was in existence close to the immortal realm. He was the brightest shining star in the territory of the Master of Chaos. In addition, there seemed to be no news of him having a cultivation partner. This naturally attracted the attention of countless bold female cultivators. However, there were too many female cultivators who were qualified to come to Tsing Hui's side. Even Princess Lan Ying, who was in front of him, was obviously a social climber. Even if Tsing Hui did not give her any face and rejected her, no one, including Princess Lan Ying and the Silver Moon Empire, would complain. However, Tsing Hui did not embarrass Princess Lan Ying in front of everyone. He followed her into the carriage. It was called a carriage, but in fact, it was almost equivalent to a palace. Not only was it thousands of square meters in area, but it was also equipped with many facilities. After Tsing Hui got into the carriage, a group of graceful dancers came forward to dance. The Silver Moon Empire seems to have some ideas. It seems that they want to pull me into an alliance and unite all the forces they can fight against Emperor Qi Zhao. Because I killed Supreme Venerable Bon Ka, I was hunted down by the 8-armed dragon god and Emperor Qi Zhao. So they think I'm on bad terms with Emperor Qi Zhao? But they probably don't know that Emperor Qi Zhao has fallen yet. Sing Hui figured out the Silver Moon Empress's intention. It seemed that under the oppression of Emperor Qi Shao, the Silver Moon Empress's situation had not been good. One was an existence close to the immortal realm, while the other was only equivalent to the five-vein realm. It was reasonable that the Silver Moon Empress was oppressed by Emperor Qi Shao. Thinking of this, Sing Hui couldn't be bothered to deal with Princess Lan Ying's increasing enthusiasm. He said casually and leapt out of the carriage, heading in the direction he sensed the Silver Moon Empress was. However, before he left, he used the power of laws to cover his tracks slightly so that Princess Lan Ying wouldn't make a fool of herself. Silver Moon Empress. Sing Hui appeared in front of the Silver Moon Empress Palace. Sword God Sing Hui. The Silver Moon Empress waved her hand to stop the guards who wanted to rush over when they sensed the disturbance. At the same time, she looked at Qing Su in surprise. Is it because the Sword God is dissatisfied with Lan Ying's arrangements? I'll summon her and give her a good scolding. It has nothing to do with Princess Lan Ying. I just don't want to waste too much time. The Silver Moon Empress said apologetically, I was rude. Please forgive me, Sword God Sing Hui. It's fine. I'm here to explain something to the Silver Moon Empress. As Qing Su said that, he glanced around. The Silver Moon Empress understood and waved a hand to dismiss the guards and maids. She brought Sing Hui into the palace. There was a restriction formation in the palace, so there was no need to worry about anyone eavesdropping. Sword God Sing Hui, what is it? Sing Hui organized his words and said, If I'm not mistaken, the Silver Moon Empire has been forced into a corner by Emperor Qi Shao. Even with the Night King, they can barely protect themselves. After all, the Night King won't go against Emperor Qi Shao for you. The Silver Moon Empress felt a little helpless, but she had to admit it was the truth. Our Silver Moon Empire is indeed in a rather bad situation right now. If it weren't for the Sovereign of the Night support and the fact that you've kept Emperor Qi Shao busy, we probably wouldn't even have 1,000 major worlds under our rule, said the Green Ruin Sword God. Since the Silver Moon Empire no longer has the strength to deal with the invasion of Emperor Qi Shao and the empires behind him, I'm sure the Silver Moon Empress won't refuse if we're willing to deal with the Qi Shao Empire and its lands and benefits, right? The Silver Moon Empress was delighted. Sword God Sing Hui, are you planning to intervene in this war against Qi Shao? Qi Shao dared to collude with the eight-armed dragon god to put you in danger. It's perfectly reasonable for Sing Hui to retaliate. No one can say anything against it. So you're saying that if we could defeat the Qi Shao Empire, the Silver Moon Empress is willing to accept it as ours? Of course. Only in the end did she pause slightly. If it's possible, our Silver Moon Empire is willing to assist the Green Ruin Sword God in taking down the Qi Shao Empire. I'm willing to assist the Green Ruin Sword God in fending off Emperor Qi Shao as well. All we need to do is take back the territory that originally belonged to our Silver Moon Empire. Considering that the Silver Moon Empress was equivalent to a five-vein expert, Qing Su pondered for a moment before agreeing in the end. Sure, but there's no need to send troops. The Silver Moon Empress will just owe me a favor. Sword God Sing Hui wants to fight Emperor Qi Shao alone. That's a little difficult. You don't have to worry about that. You just have to agree to my request. Of course. If Sword God Sing Hui can defeat Emperor Qi Shao and his empire, the Silver Moon Empire is willing to ally with Sword God Sing Hui. We'll attack and defend each other and mend our relationship forever. The Silver Moon Empress said without hesitation. All right. Sing Hui smiled and went straight to the point. I remember that the Silver Moon Empress issued a mission to the Grand Development Gate. If anyone can kill Emperor Qi Shao, she's willing to reward them with a law fragment of the Chaos Divine Beast. That's true. The Silver Moon Empress nodded, and then she said regretfully, It's a pity that as a supreme existence amongst the world protectors, Emperor Qi Shao is too powerful. Even the sect master might not be able to kill him unless he has the assistance of other elders. Sing Hui smiled and handed over a crystal. Now, you can give me the law fragment. HM? The Silver Moon Empress was slightly taken aback, but she soon understood what Sing Hui meant. She couldn't help but tremble. Sword god Xinghui, you mean? Take a look for yourself, Empress. The Silver Moon Empress almost couldn't wait to take the crystal and immerse her consciousness into it. When she saw the image of Xinghui killing Emperor Qi Shao, the Silver Moon Empress couldn't help but let out a long sigh. She didn't come back to her senses for a long time, only muttering, "Dead, finally dead." Xinghui didn't rush her and waited patiently for her to recover. Fortunately, as a peak existence, the Silver Moon Empress quickly adjusted her emotions and said apologetically, "I'm sorry, Sword God Xinghui. I lost my composure a little. I can understand. I've heard of the war between the Silver Moon Empire and Qi Shao Empire. It took the lives of many of your family members, including your husband, who you've known since you were a mortal level," Xinghui said. The Silver Moon Empress stepped aside and bowed to Xinghui. "Sword God Xinghui, thank you for bringing us such amazing news. We will always remember your help. You're too humble, Empress." "I only managed to kill Emperor Qi Shao by chance." Xinghui smiled. The Silver Moon Empress understood that what Qing Su was concerned with right now was not her gratitude, so she immediately said without any hesitation, "Please don't worry, Green Ruin Sword God. We, Silver Moon, will definitely not harm your interests in the Qi Shao Empire. As for the fragments of laws that the Great Development Sect mentioned in their request, I'll keep my word." Chapter 9:31. The trip to the Silver Moon Empire went without a hitch. Xinghui received the nomological fragment from the Silver Moon Empress as he wished. However, this was to be expected. The Silver Moon Empress could not even afford to offend Emperor Qi Shao. She was forced into a corner by him, let alone Qing Su, who was slightly stronger than Emperor Qi Shao. After discussing the division of the Qi Shao Empire's territory with the Silver Moon Empress, Xinghui informed Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword and Heavenly Venerable Gu Xuanzuan. Meanwhile, he exchanged the Qilin law that he did not need for the nomological fragment he needed and returned to the Divine Wilderness Great World. This time, he did not plan to go into seclusion in the Divine Wilderness Great World. Instead, he wanted to go to the Jade Dragon soaring through the Divine Wilderness Great World's teleportation array. The person in charge here was still Immortal Emperor Songhai. After thousands of years, Immortal Emperor Songhai still hadn't fully comprehended the formation, but he had enough understanding of it. He even used the magic of the formation to hide the area within a radius of dozens of kilometers with the teleportation formation as the center. Not to mention ordinary cultivators. Even if a powerful expert came and searched carefully, they wouldn't be able to find the location of the teleportation formation and use its power to attack the soaring Jade Dragon. After returning to the Jade Dragon soaring through the teleportation array, Xinghui learned a little about the development of Earth civilization. With the help of Void Immortal Monarchs, Earth civilization developed rapidly at a low level. However, as the standard of cultivators increased, the help that Void Immortal Monarchs could provide became less and less. At the very least, even Void Immortal Monarchs with the power of Grand Unity Immortal Monarchs could not produce true immortals. As a result, the strongest person in Earth civilization was still at the Void Immortal stage. However, there were more Void Immortals, nearly 100 of them. Among these 100 people, Xinghui was familiar with one of them, Havril, who was being specially trained. In terms of talent, Havril naturally could not be compared to other geniuses who had cultivated to the virtual immortal realm. However, due to her relationship with Xinghui, she was taken care of everywhere. Sometimes, she would even be given cultivation resources and top-notch Dharma treasures by some immortal monarchs. Under such circumstances, even if her talent was not as outstanding as others, she still entered the ranks of the strongest experts in the Earth civilization. After Xinghui learned a little about the development of Earth civilization, he did not stay for too long. He did not even disturb the Heavenly Lord of Plentiful Treasures. He met with the Purple Gold Immortal Emperor and found a place to cultivate in seclusion. This time, other than the precept fragments, there are still many other gains. After Tsing Hui finished setting up the restriction array around the perimeter, he quickly took out the 4 treasures. These 4 treasures were the Fortune Divine artifacts Tsing Hui had obtained from Grand Monarch Gu Sha, Great Monarch Qi Shao, and the 8-armed dragon god. Currently, there were only 4 treasures that could catch the attention of the Green Ruins Dharma, and be of help to him in battle. Scarlet Abyss, I'll leave these to you. Tsing Hui sized up the 4 Fortune Divine artifacts for a moment before he took out the Scarlet Abyss sword. Each Fortune Divine artifact represented a different direction of evolution and different structural forms. Constantly coordinating these evolutionary methods and structural forms would be of great help to the Scarlet Abyss sword's growth. The Scarlet Abyss sword excitedly wrapped around the 4 Fortune Divine artifacts and refined them one by one. Tsing Hui did not supervise the Scarlet Abyss sword. Since the Scarlet Abyss sword had its own way of evolution, there was no need for him to keep an eye on it like before. At this moment, before he refined the 2 precept fragments, he needed to spend some energy to restore himself to his peak state. With the help of the illusory immortal Tao world, this process took him 600 years before he began to refine the 2 precept fragments. With the solid foundation laid by the Fortune Jade, the refinement of the 2 precept fragments didn't cause too much trouble for Tsing Hui. In less than 300 years, Tsing Hui had completed the refinement of the 2 precept fragments and leapt to become a supreme expert on the same level as the Grand Development Sacred Sovereign who'd refined 8 precepts of Tao. Now, there are only 4 precepts of Tao left. Tsing Hui's gaze fell on the precept fragment that had also belonged to the ancient mystic sovereign, but its type was unknown. It's a pity that this law fragment doesn't belong to the 12 divine beasts. Otherwise, if I could exchange this law fragment for something, my battle strength would increase once again. At that time, I might even try to condense the origin plate. Even if I could barely condense the origin plate shadow, it would still be a significant increase to my battle strength. Tsing Hui felt a little regretful. I'll have to plan again and see if I can go after the divine beast primogenitor again. However, with my strength alone, even the weakest Qilin primogenitor would be very dangerous. I'll have to get the Grand Development Sect involved. Tsing Hui was about to end his closed-door cultivation and return to the Grand Development Sect. However, when his gaze fell on the precept fragment, he vaguely sensed that something was wrong with it. It was as if the precept fragment's mysteries have decreased a little. Tsing Hui stared blankly at the precept fragment for a moment and quickly realized that it wasn't an illusion. The precept fragment's mysteries had decreased a little. It was as if some special existence had refined a small portion of the precept fragment's mysteries. Sensing this anomaly, Tsing Hui was in no hurry to leave seclusion. He deliberately pretended to immerse his mind in stabilizing and perfecting the illusory immortal Tao civilization. But most of his attention was focused on the precept fragment's abnormalities. The precept fragment hadn't changed much in the past 2 years, but on the 3rd year, Tsing Hui suddenly sensed a flash of red light. A trace of the precept fragment's mysteries had been extracted. Clearly, someone had refined it. Following the red light, Tsing Hui's gaze shifted, quickly focusing on the small world he'd created with the power of a great master. It was a special world where the dragonification fruit tree and the many resources he'd used when he was in the divine realm. Tracing back, Tsing Hui's gaze finally fell on the 10-meter-tall, blood-colored statue. Hm. Tsing Hui's heart tightened at the sight of the blood-colored statue. According to the Heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures guess, it was very likely to be the true body of an evil god. Although Tsing Hui had done everything he could to keep a respectful distance from the statue after learning that it was the true body of an evil god, that didn't mean he didn't value the statue. Any changes to the statue would make Tsing Hui feel like he was facing a great enemy. This evil god is actually secretly refining that precept fragment? Since he's doing it in secret, he's naturally wary of me. Tsing Hui muttered to himself. He knew too little about the evil god's true body, and he didn't even know enough about chaos creatures. Before figuring out the relationship between the blood-colored statue and the precept fragment, he couldn't act rashly. With that in mind, he stopped his seclusion and left his cultivation ground, flying toward the heavenly lord of myriad treasures' palace. Although the immortal Tao civilization wandered around the borders of the Master of Chaos, Master of Gods, and Master of Time's territories, they knew everything that happened in the three supreme existences' territories like the back of their hands. They were more well-informed than factions like the Great Development Sect, so they naturally knew about Tsing Hui's illustrious reputation in the Master of Chaos territory over the years. Many immortal dukes had bowed respectfully to him on his way to the heavenly lord of myriad treasures, and even some immortal emperors had deliberately stopped to greet him when they learned of his arrival. The immortal Tao civilization was being hunted down by three supreme existences, so if they were intercepted, it would greatly increase their chances of escaping with their lives if they had the help of such a peak existence. A moment later, a light seemed to flash in his mind as he suddenly said, "Over the years, I've deliberately inquired about the details of the evil god who invaded the Master of Chaos universe. The evil god's true body was shattered by the Master of Chaos. Most of the main body was annihilated by the Master of Chaos, but there are still some remnants left. If I'm not mistaken, this should be a portion of the power left behind by the evil god's true body. If your statue is really the evil god we talked about earlier, he should want to absorb the power in this law fragment and reconstruct his true body as much as possible." Chapter 9:32. Reconstructing a True Body. As expected, this evil god is unwilling to be left out. Tsing Hui looked at the statue in his hand, a solemn look in his eyes. "Tsing Hui, although this evil god hasn't shown any malice at the moment, my advice to you is it's best that we don't interfere in the affairs of the evil gods. It's best that we hand this evil god over to the Lord of Chaos. Even if it's not convenient for you to hand it over, you might as well use someone else to do it. With your current status, you should have many trustworthy subordinates working for you." The heavenly Lord of Treasure, snatching, reiterated, his words full of wariness toward the statue. "Hand it over. The power of evil gods is beyond your imagination. Even the saints of the immortal Tao civilization at its peak had to rely on their indestructibility to barely contend against them. But as our world was destroyed and our laws ceased to exist, the myth of being immortal and indestructible was utterly shattered. Defeat was the only outcome we faced, especially since this evil god had once slain the 6 divine beast ancestors beneath the Lord of Chaos, and even barged into the Lord of Chaos universe and inflicted considerable damage upon him. Clearly, he was a peak champion amongst evil gods, and if we were to use the 6 tiers of chaos to categorize him, he would definitely not be at the 4th tier, but most likely at the 5th tier, second only to the 3 peerless existences, the Lord of Chaos, the Lord of Time, and the Lord of Gods. The depth and methods that such evil gods possess are too frightening. Naturally, we'd run as far as we can from an evil god at its peak, but as you can see now, Heavenly Lord, this evil god is clearly an arrow at the end of its flight. If we can dig out the benefits it has." Tsing Hui paused, seeming to think of something. "Heavenly Lord, you said that this evil god had slain the 6 divine beast ancestors under the Lord of Chaos. That's right. At the time, they probably wanted to intercept the Lord of Chaos' plan of gathering the power of the 12 divine beasts to trace the phantom of the eternal plate, so that they could replace the 12 divine beasts and glimpse the ultimate meaning of eternity. If these evil gods wanted to replace the 12 divine beasts, in other words, they must have a huge amount of law fragments in their hands." Tsing Hui's eyes couldn't help but light up at the thought. The heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures seemed to have guessed something as he frowned. "Nomological fragments, you are thinking of..." Tsing Hui nodded heavily. If he could really obtain the remaining law fragments from these evil gods in one go, with the 12 divine beast laws complete, he would soon be able to create the Panga true body and have the hope of becoming a true chaos creature. Once he became a true chaos creature, he would be able to resonate with the immortal Tao civilization and receive its power. When that happened, if he were to face the master of chaos, the master of time, and the master of gods, he might not necessarily be powerless against them. Trading with the evil god, this dangerous? Xinghui knew what the Lord of Myriad Treasures wanted to say. The heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures was the only great divine ability expert of the immortal Tao civilization. The responsibility of the entire immortal Tao civilization's inheritance was all on his shoulders, which made him prioritize safety and stability whenever he faced any situation. Over time, he had already lost the spirit to take risks and struggle. However, he was able to understand this. But Xinghui was different. Trading with the evil god might indeed be dangerous, but this evil god is clearly an arrow at the end of its flight. Even if he recovers slightly, he probably won't be able to reach his peak state. On the contrary, as long as I can obtain enough law fragments, I can immediately trace back to the origin plate and have the foundation to break through to the 4th level of the chaos realm and transform into a chaos creature. If I can become a true chaos creature before him, even if the trade is really dangerous, I will be able to deal with it calmly. It's not that easy to become a chaos creature, the heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures said. Xinghui glanced at the heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures. The heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures didn't know that he had almost 80 to 90% of the creation jade and thought it was just a small piece. In fact, he, who had almost a complete creation jade, was almost equivalent to the chosen one of the immortal Tao civilization. He could be said to have gathered all of the immortal Tao civilization's fortune on him. With the immortal Tao civilization's foundation so strong that even the master of chaos, the master of time, and the master of gods coveted it, he didn't think that the 4th level of chaos could stop him and stop him from advancing. I want to give it a try, Xinghui said seriously. Moreover, there's an old saying in the source world, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. This evil god's true body is clearly hostile to the master of chaos. We fear him because we don't have the right to speak to him as an equal. If I can really grow and reach the same level as him, I might be able to borrow their power to overthrow the master of chaos. Whether it's these evil gods or the master of chaos, they're all our enemies. Their true goal is to obtain information about the ultimate eternity in our immortal Tao civilization. Even if you maintain an excellent cooperation with this evil god, they won't hesitate to turn against you when faced with the temptation of the ultimate eternity. They won't even hesitate to ally with the master of chaos when the time comes. I understand, but I believe that as long as I don't reveal the secrets of eternity in me, the master of chaos, the master of gods, and the master of time will be their greatest enemies. Qingsu paused slightly when he reached there. Another thought flashed through his head. Moreover, it's just like you said, their ultimate goal is the secrets of eternity. In other words, even if they know there's something wrong with me, or even that they have ill intentions, they might not harm me in order to obtain the secrets of eternity from me. Instead, they might even assist me secretly so that I can reach the peak more smoothly. You're pulling chestnuts out of the fire. That's the worst outcome. At least for now, my path forward is still clear. The Lord of Myriad Treasures fell silent. After a while, he slowly said, "There's something I haven't mentioned to you. I might not be the only great master in our immortal Tao civilization. You're not the only one?" Xinghui was a little surprised. "There's another great master. Yes, that great master should be the Qingping Sword Spirit," the Lord of Myriad Treasures said slowly. "I've heard of a rumor that when our civilization was on the brink of collapse, the great ancestor of all living beings, Saint Hua, borrowed the core power of our civilization and ignited her own supreme saint power to throw the Qingping sword, born from chaos and forged from near-eternal materials, into the river of time. She attempted to return the sword's spirit to the primordial era and prevent our civilization from facing this unprecedented calamity." Saint Hua continued slowly. "That's right, Saint Hua. The river of time? That's right, the river of time. Only our immortal Tao civilization can clearly manifest and see the river of time, because this river of time is the path that the great primordial plate once walked, and the traces left behind on the path belong to eternity. There was a hint of pride in the Lord of Myriad Treasures' expression when he said this, but there was even more sadness. He was proud that their immortal Tao civilization possessed a great legacy. He was sad that his descendants didn't fight for it, and couldn't even protect the great primordial plate's legacy. Sing Hui was silent for a moment before he spoke again. If I'm not mistaken, the future clearly hasn't changed. The Lord of Myriad Treasures nodded. The future hasn't changed. At the same time, as the immortal Tao civilization crumbled, the river of time vanished as well. However, it's not without a trace, because the Qingping sword spirit is currently submerged in the river of time. Moreover, we can intermittently receive some information from the Qingping sword spirit, but most of it is incomplete and can't be analyzed. Perhaps the method of transmission is beyond our understanding. However, a few thousand years ago, not long after you first came to our jade dragon soaring through the heavens, we suddenly received a relatively clear image, an image related to you. The Lord of Myriad Treasures nodded. An image related to me? Sing Hui blinked. The Lord of Myriad Treasures nodded and waved his hand, gathering countless streaks of laws in his hand. These streams of laws appeared to be the most ordinary streams of laws. Moreover, each of these streams of laws was extremely weak, so weak that even a domain-level cultivator would not be able to use them to comprehend and cultivate. However, it was precisely because of this weakness that they could exist in any environment. It was just like spatial geometry, calculus, linear algebra, and other relatively advanced knowledge. Many people might not be able to understand them, but if it was simple numbers from 1 to 9, even a child who had just learned to speak would be able to understand. The information contained in these streaks of laws has been transmitted for 100,000 years. We've always treated them as meaningless power of laws. It wasn't until 10,000 years ago that we barely grasped an analysis method, that we guessed that this was a type of information that a certain existence wanted to transmit to us. It was a type of information that we couldn't understand, and according to our further conjecture, we identified it as the Qingping sword spirit. In the past, the information was disorderly until this image appeared. As the Lord of Myriad Treasures spoke, the image formed completely from the streaks of laws finally took shape. It was a unique perspective. It was like a person looking at the scene outside the window of a speeding train. The image was blurry and distorted, but one could still vaguely tell that it was a great being. He was surrounded by faint streaks of light that contained countless information. Outside the streaks of light, dozens of great figures seemed to be pouncing on the figure surrounded by the streaks of light at the fastest speed possible. It was like a group of heroes vying for supremacy. Even though the images were rather blurry, Qing Su managed to determine the identities of the several dozen great existences as soon as he saw them. Evil God, especially the three at the center of the dozens of great beings. They were the Lord of Chaos, the Lord of Time, and the Lord of Gods. There is no need to describe them in detail. Sing Hui knew that they were the three supreme existences. As for the figure surrounded by the streaks of light, it was himself. Author's note: the graphics are so lousy that I feel like I won't be able to write more than 1,000 chapters. So, let's open a small dungeon. Chapter 9:33. What is this? Sing Hui understood a little, but there were still more things he didn't understand. Not long ago, I wasn't sure. The only thing we could determine was the identities of you and those evil gods. But just now, the heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures' gaze fell on Sing Hui. Just now? Sing Hui's heart skipped a beat. That plan I had just now? Yes. The heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures nodded. You said, just as you said, their ultimate goal is the mystery of eternity. In other words, even if they know that you have a problem or even have ulterior motives, in order to pry the mystery of eternity from you, they might not only not harm you, but also secretly help you, allowing you to step onto the peak more smoothly. Sing Huey's heart sank. Could it be? Had he really been exposed? He had already entered the sights of the Master of Chaos, the Master of Gods, and even the Master of Time. It was just that those great and supreme existences were just quietly waiting for the development of the situation, waiting for the final moment to harvest. That scene is me finally manifesting the mystery of eternity, and it's time for them to harvest. The layer of faint flowing light around my body that contains countless information is the trace of eternity. That information is the information of eternity. Can you feel the aura of eternity inside? The heavenly Lord of myriad treasures looked at the faint flowing light around Sing Hui in the scene with a gloomy expression. Sing Hui was silent. Yes, he could feel the aura of eternity inside. At the same time, his gaze fell on himself. At that time, in terms of size, he was already not inferior to an ordinary evil god, but compared to the Master of Chaos, the Master of Gods, and the Master of Time, he was still a long way off. In other words, the aura of eternity definitely didn't mean that he had broken through to the legendary realm of eternity. Moreover, if he could really break through to the realm of eternity, which represented the ultimate of everything, then the Master of Chaos, the Master of Gods, and the Master of Time, these terrifying existences wouldn't be rushing forward to divide and devour him. They should feel fear, the fear of running as far away as possible. After a long while, Sing Hui said flatly, "This is good news, isn't it? At the very least, it's not hard to tell from this image that I'll eventually become a chaos life form and ascend to the 4th level of chaos. In other words, it doesn't matter even if I work with this evil god now. At the very least, I'll ascend to the 4th level of chaos and become a true chaos life form. Even though I don't want to believe it, but the Master of Chaos, or the Master of Gods, or the Master of Time, I don't know if one of them, or all 3 of them, has taken notice of you. That's why I have to break through to the primal chaos realm as soon as possible." Ching Su accepted the heavenly Lord of myriad treasures' words and looked at the fragment of laws in his hand. "I plan on making a deal with this evil god. I'll use this fragment of laws to exchange for the fragments of laws of other divine beasts in his possession." The Lord of myriad treasures opened his mouth, wanting to persuade Sing Hui, but he didn't know where to start. In the end, he could only let out a long sigh. "Then, I can only wish you good luck. My luck has always been good." Sing Hui smiled. "If there's anything you need help with, just let me know." "I understand." Sing Hui nodded. "I don't want my trade with the evil god to bring any trouble to Jade Dragon's soaring victories, so I'll be taking my leave first." The Lord of myriad treasures didn't urge Sing Hui to stay. He had to be responsible for the immortal Dao civilization. There was quite a high chance that green ruins had already caught the attention of a certain peak existence. Under these circumstances, if he stayed in the Jade Dragon soaring victorious sky of the immortal Dao civilization for too long, even the Jade Dragon soaring victorious sky would be exposed. Perhaps he'd already been exposed, but due to some special reasons, that great existence hadn't attacked the immortal Dao civilization. Less than half a month after Sing Hui's departure, a void immortal lord suddenly appeared in the Lord of Myriad Treasures' palace and requested to see Sing Hui. Since the matter concerned Sing Hui, the Lord of Myriad Treasures summoned the void immortal lord and asked, "Is there something you need from Sing Hui?" However, he's already left our Jade Dragon soaring victories. Lord Sing Hui has left? The void immortal lord's expression carried a trace of regret. He's still a bit late in the end. Is there something important? If it's serious, I can think of a way to contact Sing Hui. This isn't anything important, but several thousand years ago, Lord Sing Hui wanted to find an old friend he met when he was young in the origin world. Although he didn't find anyone back then and seemed to have given up, I took note of this matter and carefully investigated it. 2 years ago, I finally found someone whose characteristics matched the person Lord Sing Hui was looking for. Now, all that's left is for Lord Sing Hui to personally verify it. The void immortal lord answered carefully. The Lord of Myriad Treasures understood the importance of that person and hesitated for a moment before saying, "This matter isn't urgent. We've been here for several thousand years, so there's no need to be in a hurry. Sing Hui has more important things to do right now, so let's not disturb him." Understood. When the Heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures spoke, the Void Transformation Immortal Monarch respectfully agreed. Whoosh! Sing Hui's figure rapidly traveled, not knowing where he was going. He thought about how he might be targeted by a supreme existence who was secretly adding fuel to the fire. The world was vast, but he couldn't find a safe place to go. The immortal Tao civilization had been destroyed long ago. Currently, it overlapped with the worlds of the Lord of Chaos, the Lord of Gods, and the Lord of Time. However, because the three supreme existences still wanted to pry into the secrets of eternity from the immortal Tao civilization, they hadn't completely destroyed it. In fact, they'd only overlapped 10 to 20% of their own worlds. It wasn't that they wanted to overlap more, but if they did, the laws of two different universes would collide even more violently. At that time, the broken immortal Tao civilization would be unable to withstand the corrosion of the laws of the worlds of the Lord of Time, Lord of Gods, and Lord of Chaos. There was an 80 to 90% chance that it would be completely destroyed. If that happened, it would be wishful thinking for them to search for the secrets of eternity contained in the immortal Tao civilization. However, although there were still remnants of the immortal Tao civilization's power in this territory, if a supreme being really wanted to sweep his gaze over, he could easily see through the countless remnant laws of the immortal Tao civilization's world and lock onto his figure. If he wanted to completely shake off the supreme existence that might exist, only head to the chaos void. No, even the chaos void wouldn't work, unless he headed to the very depths of the chaos void. But to him, if he wanted to delve into the depths of the chaos void where even the three supreme existences couldn't pry into, even if he flew for millions or tens of millions of years, he probably wouldn't be able to do it. After a moment of thought, Sing Hui's gaze couldn't help but fall on the crimson statue. Compared to before, even though the blood-red statue still gave him a gloomy, evil, and powerful feeling, the feeling of horror he felt had faded a great deal. From this, it was clear that even if the crimson statue was hiding some sort of scheme, he should have the ability to fight back. As the thought flashed through his mind, he had already taken out the blood-colored statue. His powerful divine consciousness was directly injected into the blood-colored statue, shaking the structure within. "Please show yourself, honored one." Whoosh! As soon as Tsing Hui finished speaking, red mist began to diffuse from the statue. Before long, it formed the evil god's face made entirely of crimson mist. "Little fellow, it looks like you've grown quite well. However, you don't seem to have fulfilled your promise. I haven't received any sacrifices during this time. Although you haven't received any sacrifices, I believe that the few mouthfuls of power you've absorbed from this law fragment would be much more efficient than 1,000,000 Vermilion Realm sacrifices. Wouldn't you say?" Tsing Hui glanced at the law fragment in his hand as he spoke. The eyes of the face formed by the blood-colored mist also fell on the nomological fragment. After a moment of silence, the face formed by blood-colored mist said, "Then, tell me, what do you need in order to give me this law fragment?" "Barter, of course. You can trade the divine beast law fragment you have for my law fragment, but as a true chaos life form, your law fragment should be much more valuable than the divine beasts. That's why I would be at a great disadvantage if we were to trade 1 for 1. I believe that a ratio of 1 to 10 is more appropriate." "Haha, little fellow, I'm afraid you don't understand. Perhaps law fragments are precious to divine beasts, but they're nothing to chaos life forms like us. The chaos energy I breathe in every year is enough to condense dozens of law fragments like the one you have. Therefore, this law fragment isn't as valuable as you think. Is that so? If you were at your peak, you might be able to condense many law fragments from the chaos energy you breathe in every year. But now, You don't even seem to be able to manifest normally, even if you unleash all your power. I estimate that you'll only be at the level of one of the incarnations of the Master of Chaos, Master of Gods, or Master of Time. Moreover, it would only be an ordinary incarnation and extremely weak. How much time would it take for you to recover without being detected by the Master of Chaos, Master of Time, or Master of Gods? Xing Hui said calmly. It's like a mortal who's been thirsty for 3 days in the desert. Is a bottle of water in their heart the same value as a bottle of water in the heart of a person living by a river? The face, made of crimson mist, fell silent again. After a long while, it slowly said, "Little fellow, you're right. I should offer different prices for the same resource at different times. I'm willing to trade for 10 law fragments with you." Chapter 9:34. The evil god agreed to Xing Hui's request without hesitation. This made Xing Hui realize that his price was too low. The importance of this law fragment to the evil god was far beyond his imagination. However, he could also tell from the side that the evil god before him was much weaker than he had imagined. It was to the point that he had even agreed to Qing Su's rude offer, all for the sake of refining this fragment of laws as soon as possible so that he could obtain even greater strength. Very good. Xing Hui guessed that the evil god was strong on the outside but weak on the inside, but he didn't show it. He just nodded slightly. Then, let's start the deal. Where's your law fragment? In my current state, I naturally won't carry these law fragments with me. I've hidden them in an extremely secretive place, so I need you to cooperate with me to go to that hidden world and retrieve them. Sure, how do I go there? I know how to go there, but to open that world's barrier, I need a portion of my power. However, my current level of power isn't enough to open that world's gate. So, either you let me refine 1/10 of this law fragment first, or find me 1,000,000 vermilion realm cultivators for a blood sacrifice. When Xing Hui heard this, he immediately understood that there was a big problem with this world. I need to know the location of that world, as well as the method you use to open that world to confirm the truth of your words. I don't want to waste 1/10 of the law power and end up with nothing. The evil god's face formed by blood-red mist was silent for a moment before replying. Although your request is somewhat rude from your standpoint, I can understand your caution. This is the location of that world and the method to open the world's barrier. As he spoke, a piece of information was projected. Xing Hui sensed that the information didn't contain any danger, so he digested it one by one. When Xing Hui's gaze fell on the method to open the world's barrier, he vaguely felt that it was familiar, but he didn't show it on his face. An affiliated world? Xing Hui nodded with a natural expression. I'll go to that world now. I'll let you know when I'm there. All right. The face formed by the bloody mist quickly retreated back into the statue. Xing Hui also put the statue back into the world of the Almighty. However, Xing Hui couldn't help but be cautious when he considered that the power of the law fragments would still be absorbed by the blood-red statue in the small world of the great god realm. In other words, it wasn't safe to keep the statue in the small world. The evil god is in existence on the same level as the Master of Primal Chaos, the Master of Gods, and the Master of Time. Even though there are differences in strength between them, this difference is not obvious. It's like the difference between the true energy stage and the never-ending stage of the Saint Realm. If we want to completely seal this statue and prevent it from acting rashly, Xing Hui's expression froze. Not long ago, I had the Scarlet Abyss sword refine a divine creation artifact. That divine creation artifact could even seal the incarnations of the Master of Chaos, the Master of Time, and the Master of Gods. When he thought of this, Xing Hui directly took out the Scarlet Abyss sword and permeated it with his divine consciousness. Even though nearly 1,000 years had passed, the Scarlet Abyss sword had yet to refine all 4 divine creation artifacts. It had only refined less than half of the second divine creation artifact. This efficiency was much faster than refining the first divine creation artifact. After all, when the Scarlet Abyss Sword had first refined the divine creation artifact, Tsing Hui had spared no effort in pouring in his power of law to assist the Scarlet Abyss Sword spirit. Even so, it had still taken 1,000 years. This time, the Scarlet Abyss Sword spirit was the only one refining the divine creation artifact. Not only had it finished refining the first divine creation artifact in less than 1,000 years, it was also nearly halfway through refining the second divine creation artifact. Scarlet Abyss, I need to borrow this divine creation artifact. You can refine the remaining half-divine creation artifact. Yes, Father. The internal structure of every divine creation artifact is different. Right now, I'm not inferior to a divine creation artifact. Logically speaking, the speed of refining the second divine creation artifact should be greatly reduced. However, due to the difference in difficulty of refining the second divine creation artifact, it took me 400 years to refine the second divine creation artifact. Right now, the third divine creation artifact will probably take 1,300 to 1,400 years. The fourth divine creation artifact might take more than 3,000 years. The more divine creation artifact you refine, the longer it will take. Tsing Hui nodded understandingly. It seemed like the cultivation method developed by Hunyuan could not allow the Scarlet Abyss Sword to grow indefinitely. However, after refining the second divine creation artifact, the Scarlet Abyss Sword spirit was much stronger than before. If he had the Scarlet Abyss Sword in his hand when he had 2 great Dao laws, his battle power would not be close to that of an ultimate expert. Instead, he would have truly reached the threshold of an ultimate expert. If the Scarlet Abyss Sword had refined the third divine creation artifact at that time, Tsing Hui's battle power would not be inferior to any of the Bamboo Shadow Sword Master, Emperor Bai, and the rest. Take it slow. I believe that one day, you will be able to completely understand the mysteries of the divine creation artifact and transform yourself into a higher-level divine artifact. Tsing Hui encouraged. After feeling the joy of the Scarlet Abyss Sword spirit, his mood improved greatly. Immediately after, he took out the divine creation artifact that was said to be able to seal the incarnation of the Master of Gods and studied it carefully. This divine creation artifact was in the shape of a bracelet. The entire bracelet looked sparkling and translucent like jade, just like a white jade bracelet. However, from time to time, a faint purple light would flash on the bracelet. If a cultivator focused his mind and looked at the purple light, he would immediately notice that the purple light was like an extremely huge galaxy, emitting the charm of the vast starry sky and endless stars. Void Heaven Ring. Tsing Hui already understood the name of this divine creation artifact when he sensed it. This creation artifact was, in fact, a part of the chaotic universe that the Lord of Chaos did not need. After spending some time and effort, he condensed it to a high degree and formed a universe with an extremely high compression rate. Because the materials were equivalent to a part of the Master of Chaos, and because it was refined by the Master of Chaos, its quality was naturally astonishing. Even though it could not seal the Master of Gods and Time's incarnations, it could easily seal their incarnations for a period of time. Although the statue of the evil god in his hand was the evil god's incarnation, its grade was not as high as the Master of Gods and Time's incarnation. Its remaining strength was probably weaker than the Master of Gods and Time's incarnation, so it would not be difficult to seal it with the Void Heaven Ring. Of course, if the evil god wanted to break the Void Heaven Ring seal, it would naturally have to use its full strength. This way, it would be easier for Tsing Hui to see through its true strength. After spending a year to understand the Void Heaven Ring's function, Tsing Hui immediately activated the divine creation artifact and threw the evil god's incarnation into the Void Heaven Ring. After throwing the blood-colored statue of the evil god's incarnation into the Void Heaven Ring, Tsing Hui divided a portion of his consciousness to carefully observe the evil god's incarnation's reaction. As expected, the evil god's incarnation immediately manifested as soon as it was thrown into the Void Heaven Ring. Like numerous tentacles, the evil god's incarnation attempted to penetrate the void heaven ring's periphery. It was obvious that the evil god had sensed the difference in the environment. However, the blood-colored tentacles did not last for long before the evil god's incarnation seemed to have thought of something. The tentacles rapidly retracted, and very soon, the void heaven ring returned to normal, as if nothing had happened. Very good. The void heaven ring is indeed effective. The evil god's strength is much weaker than I imagined. However, based on the Master of Gods and Time's incarnation's incarnation, it can be inferred that he is stronger than the Grand Expansion Holy Sovereign, but not at the level of the Master of Gods and Time's incarnation. Based on this series of changes, Tsing Hui had a direct understanding of the evil god's true body's current strength. The evil god's true body was only at the level of 3 or even 2 vein stones. However, according to what Tsing Hui knew, the clones of the Master of Gods, the Master of Time, and the others were only at the level of a 4-vein world protector. However, their control and understanding of power far surpassed that of any great master. With a boost from their secret techniques, 4-vein world protectors could easily unleash the battle prowess of a 10-vein, 11-vein, or 12-vein world protector. To the Master of Gods and the Master of Time, size was not everything. Only the Lord of Primal Chaos would be able to send down an incarnation that was at least at the 7-pattern level. Sometimes, if the Lord of Primal Chaos couldn't control his incarnation well, it wouldn't be strange for him to send down an 8-patterned or 9-pattern incarnation. Even if the Lord of Primal Chaos had a simple secret technique or a weak combat technique, the Lord of Primal Chaos would still be able to crush his opponent through sheer power. 3-vein level of energy. It's roughly equivalent to a 10-vein level of battle prowess. I wonder if he has a Creation Divine artifact. After all, an avatar with a Creation Divine artifact and an avatar without one are 2 entirely different concepts, Tsing Hui muttered to himself. Although he had only refined 6 types of Grand Tao laws before killing Great Sovereign Bone Temple and Great Emperor Qi Shao, his battle prowess was roughly at the level of a 9-vein world protector. Now that he had refined 2 more types of Grand Tao laws, his battle prowess was nearing the level of an 11-vein world protector. If the evil god did not have a Creation Divine artifact, it would not be difficult for him to suppress the evil god. But if he did, he could only avoid the brunt of the attack. Damn it, a camel is still bigger than a horse. Tsing Hui sighed emotionally as he soundlessly returned to the Divine Wilderness Great World. The Divine Wilderness Great World was now thriving. As the Dragon Sword Heavenly Sovereign and Gu Xuanzuan conquered the forces under the command of Great Emperor Qi Shao and the 8-armed Dragon God, countless resources poured into the Divine Wilderness Great World. The entire Divine Wilderness Great World once again welcomed an explosive development. Cultivators of the Divine True Body Realm, the Traversal Realm, and the Boundary Realm with a Thought Realm emerged one after another like bamboo shoots after a spring rain. In less than 1,000 years, the number of Supremes had soared to double digits. Even if the Green Ruins and the Void Sword Pavilion were not taken into account, the Divine Wilderness Great World could be said to be famous among the dozens of great worlds in the surroundings. Moreover, as the Divine Wilderness Great World continued to develop, the number of experts continued to increase. The higher-ups of the Hunyuan sword sect also left the Divine Wilderness Great World and entered the territories of the 8-armed Dragon God and Great Emperor Qi Shao. They combined the territories of the 2 forces with the Divine Wilderness Great World and established the Hunyuan Empire with the Hunyuan sword sect as the foundation. Supreme Elder Tsing Hui was conferred the title of Hunyuan Sword Emperor. Qing Su was unaware of these developments. When he arrived at the Divine Wilderness Great World, he did not alert the people of the Origin Sword sect. Instead, he immediately found Immortal Emperor Songhai, who was overseeing the transmission array on the Fortune mainland, and handed over the method to open the great world that the Fiend God's true body had given him. Immortal Emperor, I feel that this method is a little familiar. I would like you to analyze it. Last weekend's eruption, today's make up for it. Chapter 935. This technique. Immortal Emperor Songhai had been studying the transmission array left behind in the divine wilderness Great World. The grade of this transmission array was extremely high. Many top experts of the immortal Tao civilization speculated that it was most likely left behind by a primal chaos saint. Comprehending this array was equivalent to observing and learning the array experience left behind by a primal chaos saint. The immortal Tao civilization was proficient in arrays, refining tools, and alchemy. Immortal Emperor Songhai was also a leader in arrays. Now that he had comprehended this transmission array for thousands of years, he could definitely be called the immortal Tao civilization's #1 array master. In terms of understanding of transmission arrays, he was far beyond ordinary array masters. With such a deep accumulation of experience, Immortal Emperor Songhai immediately understood something when Tsing Hui handed over the method to open the world barrier given to him by the evil god. Wait a moment. Immortal Emperor Songhai said to Tsing Hui and quickly went to his palace. He pulled out a set of materials used to arrange the array. And just like that, in front of Tsing Hui, he started to study the array and immersed himself in it. In this regard, Tsing Hui could only wait patiently. Fortunately, Immortal Emperor Songhai's study of the world's barrier method did not last long. After 3 months, he had roughly understood the principle of this array. I don't know what the world you speak of is, but although this method has the effect of opening the world barrier, it does not enter the world's barrier. Instead, it uses the power of the world's barrier as a power source to activate an array hidden in this method. As for the function of this array, fortunately, the function of this array is 30% similar to the array I'm currently studying. Therefore, I'm 90% sure that this is an ultra-long distance transmission array. Ultra-long distance transmission array? Tsing Hui immediately thought of the distance between the transmission array on the Fortune mainland and the Jade Dragon soaring through the heavens. One had to know that the Fortune mainland was located in the Divine Wilderness Great World, and the Divine Wilderness Great World was located at the border of the Master of Primal Chaos territory. The Jade Dragon, soaring through the heavens, was almost half of the Master of Primal Chaos territory, and the distance was countless light years. The evil god had given him such a transmission array. Could it be the loft fragments of those divine beasts were not in the territory of the Master of Chaos, but in the territory of the Master of Gods, or the Master of Time? Immortal Emperor Songhai, can you restore this incantation and activate it with our power? This incantation is obviously closely related to the backup plan in that world. If you could take me to that world, I can give it a try. All right, there's no time to lose. I'll take you there now, Tsing Hui said without hesitation. Immortal Emperor Songhai nodded. Immediately, the two of them soared into the sky and quickly left the divine wilderness Great World. Then, they traveled through the void at full speed. The world that the evil god spoke of was only a subsidiary world, and the so-called subsidiary world was actually a world that was attached to the original immortal Tao civilization. It was located between the chaotic void and the broken immortal Tao civilization world. Not to mention that the environment of this world was completely closed off. There were no overly precious resources inside, and very few people went to pay attention to it. The two of them spent 20 years to come to that world. When they deliberately used their divine sense to scan it, they found that the strongest experts in the world were only equivalent to the third layer of the immortal 6 realms, which was the spirit refining realm. The whole world had more than 10 continents, and each continent was divided into dozens or hundreds of countries. The population of all the continents added up to 10 billion. This world has traces of being modified by someone. In addition, Lord Tsing Hui, if you carefully sense it, you should be able to sense that there are some special things hidden in this world. These things are blocked by an invisible force. If you want to take these special things out, you need to use a special secret method and the so-called special secret method is obviously a magical method. Immortal Emperor Song Hai studied this world and quickly figured out the abnormality of this world. Even without Immortal Emperor Song Hai's guidance, Sing Hui also noticed the uniqueness of this world. He could feel that a part of this world was covered by an invisible force. If he used violence to tear apart the covering force, it was very likely that that part of the world would fall into the chaotic void and be eroded by the chaotic void. According to what the evil god's true body told him, these covered things should be law fragments. Next, he only needed to follow the evil god's instructions and give him enough power to open this world. Then, he would be able to take out the law fragments hidden in this world and complete the transaction with him. However, he had already learned from Immortal Emperor Song Hai that the method to open this world contained special changes. Once this method was used to open this world, it would inevitably form an ultra-long-distance transmission formation that would send him to an unknown location. This was something that Sing Hui could not be careless about. Immortal Emperor Song Hai, can you activate this method? Although this method has certain requirements for the characteristics of the power, the main part is still the shielded space. If you don't need to open the shielded space, I can activate it. You don't need to open the shielded space? Can't you take out the thing in the shielded space while activating the method? I can't. Immortal Emperor Song Hai shook his head. The power he used to shield the space is not the power of laws or formations. It's Immortal Emperor Song Hai paused for a moment to organize his words. It's a little like a creation divine artifact of the nature of a small world. Sing Hui vaguely understood that this was a small world that the evil god's true body had left behind to refine from a part of his chaotic universe. If I want to take out what I want from this space that's similar to a divine tool of creation, is there a way? I can only rely on his method, but this will inevitably activate the ultra-long-distance transmission formation. Sing Hui frowned. That evil god! His methods were very comprehensive. Immortal Emperor Song Hai looked at the world for a long time before saying, if we want to stop that ultra-long-distance transmission array, we should be able to start from the energy source. The energy source of that ultra-long-distance transmission array is this world. It will absorb the energy of the entire world and convert it into the kinetic energy of the transmission array, thus activating the ultra-long-distance transmission array. If we can destroy this world, we will naturally be able to stop the activation of the transmission array. The only problem is, even if we take advantage of the moment when the world shatters and use a spell to intercept that spatial creation artifact and prevent it from falling into the chaotic void, we may not be able to open it. After all, that spatial creation artifact is one with this world itself. When the world is destroyed and loses its energy source, this spatial creation artifact will be locked from the inside. If it's locked, then so be it. When the time comes, we'll slowly chisel it open. Sing Hui sneered. Chisel it open? Immortal Emperor Song Hai blinked. Even a creation divine artifact can be chiseled open. Though he was a member of an immortal Tao civilization, he was well versed in the cultivation system of the Lord of Chaos. According to the information he'd gathered, no creation divine artifact had ever been destroyed unless it encountered the incarnations of great existences such as the Son of Chaos, the Master of Gods, or the Lord of Time. At best, the destruction of a creation divine artifact would exhaust its power so that it couldn't perform its intended function. It's true that we can't destroy a creation divine artifact with our strength, but after a pause, Sing Hui said, "All right, leave the matter of chiseling open the creation divine artifact to me. You should study the method to activate it now." All right. Immortal Emperor Song Hai nodded and swiftly arrived at the world's surface. However, when he swept his gaze over the world, he said, there are 10 billion living beings in this world. If we don't relocate them, they'll all perish with the destruction of the world. I'll take them into my immortal kingdom. Sing Hui nodded. If he could avoid harming the innocent, he naturally didn't want to do so. Immortal Emperor Songhai had spent a full 30 years studying the method to activate this world. Only after 30 years had passed did he finally hand over a brand new method to Tsinghui. It should be done. All right, Tsinghui replied expectantly. In a moment, I'll activate this method and pull out the spatial creation divine artifact hidden in this world. Then, you could destroy this world. Immortal Emperor Songhai nodded and focused. Tsinghui began to circulate the method. Streams of light spread out from his hands and enveloped the entire world. At the same time, a minor world with a diameter of more than 100 kilometers appeared and began to operate and activate according to a special method. Once the minor world was activated, Immortal Emperor Songhai immediately destroyed the auxiliary world before him. While this auxiliary world was not small, spanning more than 10 billion square kilometers, it was nothing to an origin immortal emperor who was equivalent to a god. Under his power, the entire world was quickly obliterated. The streams of light that had enveloped the world dissipated with the destruction of the world, and the minor world that was less than 100 kilometers in diameter also calmed down. It's done. A sliver of joy appeared on Qing Su's face when he saw that. He had already kept the miniature world. Next, he would let the Scarlet Abyss sword devour and refine the miniature world that was like a creation artifact bit by bit. As long as he could create an opening and enter the miniature world, all the fragments of laws hidden in the miniature world that had been refined from a fragment of the chaotic universe would belong to Qing Su. By then, he would be able to complete the third layer of the Disk of Ways in a single stroke with these fragments of laws. With the illusory world of immortals as his foundation, he would be able to trace back to the Disk of Origins and become a true life form of chaos. However, the joy on Qing Su's face only lasted for a while. The miniature world that had already dimmed suddenly erupted with dazzling light, and it began to absorb the power of laws within him like a whale sucking in water. It was so fast that even though he had already refined 8 laws, he still felt like he was about to be sucked dry instantly. Not good. This minor world is the key to activating that ultra-long distance teleportation formation. Qing Su's expression changed drastically, but by now, he had already discovered that he could not stop the technique at all. Easy. Basically, when 80% of the power of laws in Qing Su's body had been absorbed, the dazzling light that erupted from the miniature world had already turned into an unprecedented ripple of space, sweeping up Qing Su and Immortal Emperor Songhai. In the next moment, they tore through the chaotic space and flew towards the very depths of it. Chapter 9:36. Buzz. When the stream of light enveloped the two of them and shot into the depths of the void, the entire territory of the Lord of Chaos seemed to tremble. One could vaguely see a gigantic hand that was tens of millions of light years in the endless void intercepting the stream of light from afar. It seemed to want to grasp the stream of light in its hand and crush it into pieces. However, the stream of light appeared too abruptly, and its speed was too fast, while the gigantic hand that spanned tens of millions of light years was too slow. In the end, it could only watch as the stream of light broke through the layers of blockade and entered the depths of the chaotic void. In the depths of the chaotic void, terrifying life forms that were hundreds of millions of light years in size were constantly cruising around, exuding extremely terrifying pressure. Even a trace of this pressure was enough to make a great magic-level existence shudder. If it were an ordinary supreme being, just this power alone would be enough to erase his spiritual imprint and life imprint. Just like how humans would be blinded and deprived of their vision when they saw a strong light. Those life forms that weren't strong enough would also have their life imprints and spiritual imprints erased when they came into contact with the life waves of these life forms that were at the pinnacle of existence. In other words, they would be turned into ashes on the spot. However, These terrifying life forms that were hundreds of millions of light years in size were nothing compared to the chaotic void that was filled with chaotic energy. They were like celestial bodies that were suspended in the starry sky of the universe. Compared to mortals, they were unimaginably huge and shocking, but compared to the vast starry sky, they were not worth mentioning. Even if these terrifying and great life forms wanted to intercept the stream of light that flew past, they would have to give up temporarily due to the distance. The stream of light flew in the endless chaotic void for an unknown period of time. Finally, a slowly revolving but seemingly lifeless huge world appeared in front of the stream of light. Then, without any pause, the stream of light quickly shot into the stream of light and merged with the huge world. Eternal Shrine, Star Abyss Universe Supreme Palace. As a stream of light shot in, this palace, which had been immersed for 100,000 years and was equivalent to the supreme temple in the hearts of the cultivators in the entire Star Abyss universe, suddenly burst out with a dazzling stream of light. For a time, countless top experts and giants of various generations who were guarding this temple came from all directions of the universe, like believers on a pilgrimage. Their expressions were full of piety. Among all the pilgrims, the leader was an old man who guarded the divine hall. The old man was filled with the presence of many profound laws, and the energy pulses he gave off from time to time were unfathomable. However, at this moment, Zabulu, who could be considered a supreme existence in the eyes of any powerful being, was prostrating himself in front of the main hall of this divine temple. With an excited expression, he shouted, "High Priest Zabulu welcomes the arrival of my lord." Following the shout of the high priest named Zabulu, top experts with unfathomable auras appeared one after another. They arrived outside the eternal shrine and shouted loudly, prostrating themselves in worship. Pope Tebran of the Church of Dawn welcomes the arrival of our Lord. First Tower Master of the Dark Tower, Resplendent Star welcomes the arrival of our Lord. City Lord Long Chi of the City of 1,000 Worlds welcomes the arrival of our Lord. Voices echoed in the void. Without exception, everyone was filled with respect, worship, and even fanaticism. These voices echoed outside the temple, but it made Xing Hui, an immortal emperor, Songhai, who had just been teleported here by the ultra-long-distance teleportation array, look quite unsightly. So many experts. The experts outside are all at the Lord of Heaven realm. The aura of some of them is comparable to the supreme experts in the territory of the Lord of Chaos. Immortal Emperor Songhai said solemnly, "I can no longer feel the fluctuation of laws of our immortal Tao civilization, coupled with the scene of the outside world we saw when we were teleported just now. We are now far away from the immortal Tao civilization, far away from the Lord of Chaos, the Lord of Time, and the Master of Gods. We have come to an unfamiliar universe." Unfamiliar? Xing Hui's gaze fell on the void heaven ring in his hand. No, it's not unfamiliar. At least, it's not unfamiliar to him. If I'm not mistaken, we are now in his chaotic universe. Immortal Emperor Songhai thought of the brief introduction Xing Hui had given him and paled. Evil God. We've entered a chaotic universe formed by an evil god. Ching Su opened his mouth and was about to say something, but at this moment, the evil god that he had sealed in the void heaven ring seemed to sense something. A blood-red mist permeated the surroundings wildly and began to smash against the seal of the void heaven ring. However, when it truly attacked the void heaven ring seal, Xing Hui discovered that the evil god's power was weaker than he'd imagined. Not only was it weak, it was much, much weaker. It was so weak that even a great master's cultivation was far below it. At best, it was equivalent to a ruler. However, due to the terrifying deterrence of the evil god's identity, Xing Hui didn't dare to attack, even though he clearly had the power to destroy the crimson statue and even kill the evil god at the end of its flight. In the end, furthermore, he had been schemed against by this evil god and fell into his trap. He had been used as the energy source to activate the ultra-long distance teleportation array formation and had directly come to this world. He arrived in the evil god's world. Fortunately, the only thing worth rejoicing over was that the true body of the evil god was sealed within the Void Heaven Ring. The Void Heaven Ring was a space-type creation artifact that the Master of Primal Chaos had used a part of his body to create. Its sealing power was astonishing. For the time being, the weakened true body of the evil god would not be able to leave the Void Heaven Ring and merge with the world he had created. Otherwise, if the evil god really did merge with the Void Heaven Ring, it would be equivalent to a weak incarnation of a world creation realm expert returning to his minor world. It would instantly recover to its peak state. At that time, even the 12 divine beast primogenitors under the Lord of Chaos would die, to say nothing of Tsing-Hui. Are all the top experts in the outside world the evil god subjects? Immortal Emperor Tsang-Hai's heart was filled with fear when he sensed the powerful auras rapidly approaching from the outside world. According to his senses, the number of experts equivalent to heavenly lords, or in other words, great ability users, had already exceeded 3 digits. At the same time, even more experts of this level were hurrying over from even further away, as if they were on a pilgrimage. They wanted to pay their respects to the supreme ruler of this chaotic universe, the evil god that Xing Su had sealed away in the Void Heaven Ring. No matter what, we can't reveal our identities. At the same time, we can't let these people know that the supreme ruler in their hearts is sealed in the Void Heaven Ring by us. Moreover, we can't let this evil god escape from the Void Heaven Ring. Otherwise, once this evil god returns to his universe, he'll recover to his peak state in an instant. At that time, killing us will be as easy as crushing an ant. Tsing-Hui was about to think of a way to disguise his identity as he spoke when an enormous invisible consciousness rapidly circulated throughout the chaotic universe. This consciousness wasn't a real existence, but rather a human instinct that had spontaneously awakened after sensing something unusual. As the consciousness awakened, it seemed to sense Tsing-Hui's true self sealed in the Void Heaven Ring and began to permeate the Void Heaven Ring with great power. The evil god's true body in the Void Heaven Ring immediately sensed the changes in the outside world. In an instant, his originally 10-meter-tall statue suddenly came to life, and a power that almost reached the level of an almighty erupted from his hand. In an instant, he instinctively formed a connection with the will of the outside world. Upon closer inspection, Tsing-Hui discovered that the great master-level power erupting from the evil god was the result of him secretly refining the law fragment not long ago. You want to form a connection with the consciousness in the outside world. Seal it. Tsing-Hui didn't care about anything else. The power of the laws of the Tao of Unity rapidly circulated, transforming into streaks of sword chi that swept across all directions, severing all the tentacles of the evil god's true body had extended to the Void Heaven Ring. However, it would have been better if he hadn't severed the evil god's tentacles. As soon as he did, the tentacles turned into pieces of information that were absorbed by the consciousness in the outside world almost instinctively. After receiving this information, or rather, consciousness, the entire chaotic universe began to revolve with a loud rumble. Everything between heaven and earth seemed to be undergoing drastic changes. What Tsing-Hui saw was that the laws of the world, which had originally been somewhat clear, had completely disappeared without a trace. The auras of the peak experts outside were also constantly plummeting. At this moment, the entire chaotic universe seemed to have sealed off all active energy fluctuations. Sealed off a world. He sealed off his own world. No, it should be called a universe. Sealed off his own universe. Tsing-Hui immediately understood the evil god's true body's intentions. Sealing off a universe was akin to catching a turtle in a jar. As long as he couldn't leave this chaotic universe, the evil god, as the king of the universe, would one day be able to break through the Void Heaven Ring seal. When that time came, however, the situation was clearly much worse than Tsing-Hui had imagined. Xing Hui immediately activated the Void Heaven Ring's sealing power to the maximum, but the information transmitted by the two consciousnesses just now was much more than he'd imagined. A majestic and vast voice instantly spread throughout the entire universe. The voice contained extremely detailed information. My subjects, a group of heretics has intruded into this sovereign's world. Now, this sovereign calls upon you to capture these two heretics and hand them over to this sovereign to deal with personally. This voice seemed to be transmitted by the instinctive consciousness of the chaotic universe, resounding in the minds of all intelligent beings. Even Xing Hui and immortal Emperor Zhang Hai were no exception. Not only did this voice resound in their minds, but also contained detailed portraits of them, their life auras, and soul fluctuations. At the same time as this message was transmitted, the terrifying consciousness in the void that was powerful enough to maintain the operation of the chaotic universe descended with a loud rumble. Carrying a divine might far beyond what Xing Hui could withstand, it locked on its Xing Hui and immortal Emperor Zhang Hai's figures and pointed out the direction for the hundreds of great experts outside the temple. "It's over." Immortal Emperor Zhang Hai wailed in despair. The enemy of the universe. This was the true enemy of the universe. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.